Welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Subcommittee on Zoning and today is unless your name has been called. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning and welcome to a meeting of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. I am Councilmember Kevin Riley, Chair of the Subcommittee, and I'm joined today by Councilmember Powers. Today we are scheduled to hold one public hearing regarding the proposal known as Lenox Hill Hospital in Councilmember Powers' district. Before opening the hearing, I will first go over the hearing procedures. This meeting is being held in hybrid format. Members of the public who wish to testify may testify in person or through Zoom. Members of the public wishing to testify remotely may register by visiting the New York City Council's website at www.council.nyc.gov/land-use to sign up. And for those of you here in person, please see one of the Sergeant-at-Arms to prepare and submit a speaker's card. Members of the public may also view a live stream broadcast of this meeting at the Council's website. When you are called to testify before the subcommittee, if joining remotely, you will remain muted until recognized by myself to speak. When you are recognized, your microphone will be unmuted. We will limit public testimony to 2 minutes per witness. If you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you have written testimony you would like to submit instead of appearing in person, please email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Written testimony may be submitted up to 3 days after the hearing is closed. Please indicate the LU number and/or project name in the subject line of your email. We request that the witnesses joining us remotely remain in the meeting until you are excused by myself, as council members may have questions. Lastly, for everyone attending today's meeting, this is a government proceeding and decorum must be observed at all times. Members of the public are asked not to speak during the meeting unless you are testifying. The witness table is reserved for people called to testify, and no video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recording as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant-at-Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. I will now open the public hearing on pre-considered LUs relating to the Lenox Hill Hospital proposal on the Upper East Side. Applicant is seeking to modernize and enlarge the hospital, which has been at this site since the 1800s. The current hospital consists of 10 buildings, and the proposal involves demolitions, some of the existing buildings to construct a new building and renovating the remaining buildings. For anyone wishing to testify on this item remotely, if you have not already done so, you must register online by visiting the Council's website at council.nyc.gov/land-use. For anyone with us in person, please see one of the Sergeant-at-Arms to submit a speaker's card. And if you are filling out a speaker's card, please make sure to indicate whether you are testifying in favor or in opposition. As always, if you prefer to submit written testimony, you may do so by emailing it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. I would now like to recognize Councilmember Powers for his remarks.
Thank you to Chair Riley. Good morning, and thank you everyone for being here, and those tuning in online, welcome as well. I'm City Councilmember Keith Powers, representing the Lenox Hill Hospital site and the Upper East Side, which we are discussing today. It's been my great privilege to represent this area for the last 8 years. I want to thank everyone who is here today. I want to thank many of my constituents and committee board members who are here. I want to thank the team at Lenox Hill Hospital and Dr. Baker for being here as well to discuss an important project on the Upper East Side and for the city. As many of you know, I've heard many feedback from many constituents in this area who feel strongly about this proposal, and many that you will hear from today. While I think many of us have supported a modernizing outdated hospital, we all feel the final proposal must better reflect the community's understandable concerns about the construction timeline, what it means to live in a construction zone, and ultimately about the height and the scale. A successful plan here would deliver excellent health care at a more appropriate scale with less disruption. This proposal has gone through numerous iterations, so I just want to give a little bit of background on the previous versions of this project. In 2019, Northwell originally proposed a 516-foot hospital building with a 490-foot residential tower. I agree with the community, and ultimately we worked with Northwell to address that this was out of scale of the neighborhood, and we convened a task force with the borough president to suggest a more suitable plan. Northwell responded by revising this proposal to 436-foot proposal building and removed the Park Avenue Tower. And more recently presented a new option, lowering the height to 390 feet on Lexington Avenue and spreading the building across the mid-block. That is a shortcut to a very long conversation that took place in between all of that. But here we are today with two options before us, in terms of two proposals, I should say, before us. And after hearing neighbors' concerns about disruptive construction, we have been able to reduce the duration from 11 to 9 years, though I think I echo the concerns of many constituents that while this is progress, there is still a lot more to do. Despite these improvements, the proposed building is still very tall, and the construction timeline is too long. The neighbors have had reasonable concerns. They fear construction noise will make their quiet residential streets unbearable. Parents worry about kids walking to school through a dusty construction zone, and anyone who lives in this area continue to be concerned about what the 9-year timeline will be like to live in. I am determined to find a realistic plan that better reflects those community concerns while also ensuring that we can maintain cutting-edge health care at Lenox Hill Hospital. It's important not to lose sight of the critical purpose of this building and this block. It's health care for patients in their most vulnerable moments. Lenox Hill Hospital treats 144,000 patients a year, employs 5,000 healthcare workers, and has served New Yorkers for over a century. There seems to be, not to mention the many other jobs that would be part of this construction as well. There seems to be unanimous agreement that Lenox Hill Hospital's current outdated building does not meet the standards of modern medicine. The renovation would expand the emergency department, upgrade the operating rooms, and give every patient a single bed room. It's our hope that the final plan will be able to deliver quality health care while understanding and respecting the community's concerns. I want to thank the many members of the coalition and the community members who have spent countless hours with my office and my team walking through their concerns. I want to thank the community board. I know our community board chair and other members are here today for their input in this process as well. And I want to thank the team at Northwell for their continued listening and for being here today to present on their plan. And of course, I want to thank my team, to Carolyn and Ben, who have also spent countless hours with the community board members, with the coalition members, and the hospital applicant to also make sure that this conversation brings in all voices. I also want to thank Chair Riley and all the staff at the Council Land Use Division for your work on this application and many other applications that come through your committee. With that, I look forward to hearing everyone's testimony here today and look forward to continuing this conversation afterwards. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers. Just for the record, the LU numbers for this project is LU 339, 340, and 341. I will now call the applicant panel for this proposal, which consists of Jonathan Cogswell, Tomas Razant, Jim Stinks, Mike Hoke, Lisa Lau, and Nick Williams. Can you please come to the podium? And Dr. Baker. Council, can you please administer the affirmation?
Yes, could you all please raise your right hand? And could you state your name for the record? Starting from right to left. You have to turn on your microphone.
Daniel Baker.
Melanie Myers.
Jonathan Cogswell.
Could you please keep your right hand raised, and do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in your testimony today and in response to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the viewing public, if you need accessible version of this presentation, please send an email request to landustetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now the applicant team may begin. Please state your name and organization for the record before you begin. You may begin.
Good morning, council members, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you. We are exceptionally excited to talk about the redevelopment of Lenox Hill Hospital. My name is Dan Baker. I am an emergency physician, and I'm the president of Lenox Hill Hospital. Next slide. It's important that we recognize that at our very core, this project is a healthcare project. And as was stated by the council member, we are so proud of the patients of the communities that we have served for the past 160 years. This project is equally about a renewal and a modernization, an investment in our infrastructure to lift our facilities commensurate to the care that we provide to our patients each and every day. Next slide. This project puts the patient at the center of everything that we want to do. That's part of our mission statement. It's represented in the accolades that we have developed on clinical care, with 6 of our specialties ranked in the top 50 nationally per U.S. News & World Report. And for the 4th year in a row, Healthgrades has listed us as a top 50 best hospital. We equally understand the foundational pillar that a hospital represents to a community, and we work with many community parties to continue that integration. We screen all of our patients for food insecurity, and we work with God's Lovers We Deliver for those who qualify to assure that they have the food they need for health. We've worked with the New York City Department of Education and Future Ready NYC to take young New Yorkers and show them the path to health care. And we have many vaccination clinics, screenings for blood pressure, vision, chronic diseases, to move out into the community and meet patients where they are to assure they, again, have the health care they need. Next slide. When we look at who we are, we represent something that's far bigger than the geographic location we have on the Upper East Side. We have approximately 144,000 visits a year, which includes 4,000 deliveries, 14,000 surgeries, greater than 50,000 emergency department visits. And when we look at that patient population in terms of where they come from, the graph on the right will show that about 46.5% of our patients come from Manhattan County, another 12.8% from the Bronx, 11.3% from Brooklyn, and 10.9% from Queens. All told, 3/4 of our patients come from New York City at large. Equally, over 60% of our patients use public insurance, that being both Medicare and Medicaid, and 55% of our patients identify as non-white. This is a population that represents a greater New York City population, and one of which we're very proud. Next slide. When we think about renewing our facility, this has to do with the way that we have been on this block over the course of decades, and we have stitched 10 buildings together. On the right side of the diagram, you see that we have buildings from the 1800s and into the 1900s, and then that our newest building on Park Avenue is from 1972, which is now over 50 years old. There are infrastructure problems that prohibit renewal, floor-to-ceiling heights, the different configurations, and then in addition, the 4 buildings which are marked in orange here structurally cannot house inpatient care, which is why our redevelopment and our proposal focuses on the eastern end of our block on Lexington Avenue. The majority of our beds are in shared rooms, not commensurate with where we want to be. Our operating rooms are undersized for the modern technology and the ability to really care for the patients that we serve. And our emergency department, which has been home for me for so many years, offers exceptional, efficient care in a woefully undersized environment. Next slide. When we look at the need to renew and how we built our hospital from this, we had to start with the clinical services that we provide to the community on a daily basis, some of which are listed on the right. That stems from behavioral health to multiple surgical specialties to cancer care and maternal child. We additionally looked at the population growth, at the aging population, and the rising demand for specialized care, and that's how we put together our proposal and ended up with the building that we did. It's thinking about a failure of proposed rezoning and a failure in investment in infrastructure that unfortunately would cost us to think about what services can we no longer offer. We've seen that playing out with the closure of St. Vincent's, and most recently with the closure of Mount Sinai Beth Israel, and that is not a story that we would like to have be ours. Next slide. Key drivers in this project stem from single-bedded rooms. This is definitively better for clinical outcomes. It puts the patient at the center, one patient, one bed, one bathroom, with anyone that they want to bring in with them to receive care. We equally can better bring care to the patient rather than the patient to care. It's better operationally. We don't have to match gender, sickness, disease in order to allow a patient to actually enter into a bed that might be otherwise available. We need to modernize our ORs, again, those 6 specialties which really push the clinical frontier of that care. They need space for the robots, for the monitors, for the people who are operating those, and they need to improve. And then again, our emergency department, we need to be able to put patients into private locations so they have privacy, less anxiety, and that we can provide all the care that we need to where they are. The bottom right picture is what a modern emergency department would look like and what the emergency department at Greenwich Village Hospital does. Importantly, we have a commitment to our patients and our mission that we will maintain ongoing operations throughout this project. We cannot, nor will we close. Next slide. Taking a look at our program summary, the differences between what we have existing as well as what we have proposed. On the 4th row, you can see that we operate about 450 beds in our current state. That is not the same number of rooms, because right now we have single and double-bedded rooms, with over 2/3 of our beds in double-bedded rooms at this time. The intent is to increase from 450 to 475, but most importantly, every single one of those beds being in its own room. So beds equaling the room count, again, putting the patient at the center of what we want. We will increase the size of our emergency department from 34 to 48. This is benchmarked against 50,000 plus visit annual emergency departments, and again, allows for the privacy and care they need. And we'll talk about the ambulance bays as well as the materials center that we will have in a few slides. Looking at the street environment and access improvements, we have a $20 million commitment to the 6th subway stop. This is what I take to and from every work. I know that the congestion exists there, but we are now going to bring this into our building. We'll make it ADA compliant. We will make it commensurate with what Upper East Siders should experience on the 6th train, which is highly utilized. Equally, we understand that we have to be better at our block, and that's one of the goals of our projects. Instead of having 77th Street be our ambulance bay, we will now incorporate those and internalize those into the hospital, no longer causing substantial congestion all the way down 77th Street, and equally, again, being patient-centric, faster care with no exposure to inclement weather. And on the 76th Street side, we will right-size the number of material-sized bays that we have to be able to incorporate the trucks that we do. It will be sight unseen to our communities and our neighbors so they do not experience what they do now. Next slide. A little bit about our project development. We've been going at this for quite some time. We came out in 2019 with initial zoning board and community board 8 presentations, and at that time, the proposal was 516 feet on Lexington with a residential tower. We formulated a task force with Keith Powers as well as with Gail Brewer, and there was a lot of dialogue that occurred in that time period. We were then unfortunately interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. But through listening to the community and the dialogue that occurred, we came out of that pandemic in 2023 with a new proposal, which substantially reduced the height to 436 feet on Lexington and eliminated the residential component, which was universally disliked. We then went through pre-scoping and scoping and then furthered our application developed such that we entered the ULIP with a new option. We tried to continue to listen and continue to reduce the height. We're now under 400 feet at 395 and pushing just slightly into the mid-block. Next slide. A little bit about how our ground floor will change. We move our entrance to the hospital to 76th Street in Lexington. It's much larger, it's much more spacious, it's much more consistent with inviting the community and our patients in, and it removes the pedestrian traffic that goes to the mid-block. There'll be a small retail, which is a pharmacy. There'll be an emergency walk-in entrance immediately adjacent to the subway, a staff entrance, and then past all of those entrances will be the incorporation of those ambulances, again, within our facilities and off 77th Street. There's a mother-baby entrance on Park Avenue, and then continuing on to 76th Street, that's where we'll have multiple receiving bays that, again, allow for the trucks to pull in quickly, fast roll door doors, so that no one has to see the materials as they're delivered to the hospital. Next slide. Here's a schematic of option 1 versus option 2. This is looking northbound from 76th Street. On option 1, you can see the height with mechanicals is currently at 436 feet. On option 2, the height with mechanicals is at 395 feet on Lexington with 360 feet in the mid-block. Next slide. A couple of quick renderings. This is what option 1 would look like looking southbound from 79th and Lexington. Next slide. This would be option 2. Next slide. This is what our entrance could look like, and again, currently illustrative, but much more grand and inviting to the community and much easier for our patients to access. Next slide. The subway entrance, as we spoke to, incorporated into our building with an overhang that allows you to walk the length of the block. Next slide. And then lastly, a view from 75th and Park. And what is difficult to see in this is just how our building would peek out over its neighbors. It really does not cause massive disruption to what we see on Park Avenue. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Melanie Myers, for a summary of the zoning actions.
Thank you. And next slide, please. My name is Melanie Myers, Land Use Counsel with Fried Frank. So just a quick overview of the actions. There are 3 actions before this committee. It's a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, and a special permit to allow for the hospital redevelopment. There is also an authorization for transit improvements for the subway that Dr. Baker described, and a certification for the easement volume that the subway will be located in. Next slide. First is the zoning map amendment. The current site is located in 3 zoning districts. On the Park Avenue frontage, it is an R10 district within the Park Improvement District that allows for a community facility at 10 FAR and for residential at 12 FAR with the City of Yes zoning. In the mid-block, it is zoned R8B. The current building does not comply with that, but that would allows for a community facility FAR of 5.1. And then on the Lexington Avenue frontage is currently C18X, which allows for 9 for community facility, 10.8 for residential. What we're proposing to do is to rezone the mid-block to C18, the Lexington Avenue frontage to C19, and the Park Avenue frontage would remain unchanged. That would allow for a base FAR for community facility of 10 over the entire block, which is consistent with many of the other hospital institutions in the city. This next slide, please. The zoning text amendments, there are 4. The principal one is creating a new special permit under an Article 7, Chapter 4, that will allow for a floor area bonus for the modification and upgrade of an existing hospital where they occupy a full block in these districts. The second text amendment would allow for the special permit to be used in conjunction with a transit improvement bonus. The third would make the hospital special permit available in the Park Improvement District with some details. And finally, as a technical matter, we would be amending Appendix F to make the rezoned area a mandatory inclusionary housing area. Next slide. The hospital special permit itself would be asking for the 20% floor area bonus for the upgraded hospital. It would allow for an additional 0.5 of additional transit bonus. There would be height and setback modifications and other bulk controls. And finally, it would establish an envelope for development on the project block so that there would be certainty with regards to the project and its development. Next slide. So looking at, these are the 2 envelopes that are part of the application itself. You're looking at, there's 76th Street is on the sort of to the lower right, and Park Avenue is on the lower left. So you can see the taller portion of the envelope, option 1, rising to a base height of 195 feet, then stepping back to the 436 foot height that was mentioned. And then the envelope would drop down, and as you move far closer to Park Avenue, you'd see that the envelope actually wraps around, is generally the same height of the buildings that exist today. On the left, you have option 2, and again, base height of 195 feet, then a setback to the 395-foot height. And then as you see, as you step further into the mid-block and to the west, there's a component that would drop down to a height of 360 feet. And again, when you get to the Park Avenue frontage, the envelope would wrap around the existing buildings. Next slide. and and then finally, so these actions were authorizations from the City Planning Commission, but there are authorizations and certifications associated with the envelope, with the transit improvements that Dr. Baker described. That includes removing the stairs on the sidewalk and creating a new, larger stair within the volume, as well as ADA accessibility from the street level to the platform itself. Next slide, please. So we also just wanted to point out, in terms of precedent, every larger hospital complex has received approvals. Hospitals need to grow, and they have been able to grow, or they've been able to be successful. So with this, the Long Island Hospital proposal, the Lenox Hill proposal, will be at a little over 1 million square feet of floor area, well within the scale of the hospital facilities that have been approved in the past, including by the City Council. Next slide. Similarly, in terms of the height that we're asking for, the tallest element of our proposal, between 395 and 436 feet, is well within the height and scale of other buildings that have been built in hospitals and that have been approved. And so while we recognize that this is a project that is a significant project and one that deserves a lot of attention, we also think that it's well within the zoning precedents that have been seen before. Next slide. And with that, we have members of our architect team, our facilities team, and our environmental team, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I have a few questions that I'm going to turn over to Councilmember Powers. In 2019, Northwell Health initially proposed a 500-foot tall hospital building that you discussed earlier, Dr. Baker, with an adjacent residential building. You discussed how the community, and it was universally something that everyone didn't agree with. How is this revised proposal more responsive to the community's concerns?
So the revised proposal is responsive in two ways to that initial proposal. First, in removing the residential component piece. That was something that through the task force was not wanted, and we subsequently removed that. So that entirely came out of our proposal. Second was an understanding that the community felt that 516 feet was too tall, so we reduced it over 80 feet to 436. Again, I understand that there's a desire for further reduction, but we built this based on the clinical services that we provide. And so when we think about the care that we provide across the different services, that's what gets us to that height. And further reduction in height causes us to have to think about what does a hospital no longer offer to the community. But I feel, again, that this was something where, while it might not have to the degree that the community wanted, it was still very much listening about height being important, and again, the removal of the residential equally so.
You spoke about the beds. Can you state how many beds you guys currently have now, and how many beds are you proposing? And you said single beds you're proposing now, correct?
Correct. So right now we have 450 beds. The proposal has a modest increase to 475 total beds. The real difference here and what changes in terms of the zoning and massing is twofold. One is current code and regulation, where everything got a bit bigger as healthcare continued to evolve. And secondly, over 2/3 of those 450 beds exist in private rooms. Those individuals come into the hospital, they share a bathroom with someone they don't know. All of their family members are in there together. They have a combined closet. And you don't know, again, as you enter in a time period of probable great anxiety for yourself, who is going to be in there with you. And we need to change that. And that's what this proposal does, by making it so there is an equitable distribution of single-bedded rooms across all of our patients. We also understand, as this often comes up, Medicare currently reimburses those. They do across the United States. They do in New York as well, and they will continue to do so in the future when we have them.
So just from my understanding, 475 of the beds will be single beds, or just 2/3 of 475?
All 475.
All
will be single
475 would be
beds.
single beds. And you'll be able to provide the services directly within the rooms?
It allows us to do many things about bringing services to the rooms. We have technology such as ultrasound or echocardiograms, or these different pieces that often we then have to take the patient, transport them to the department, perform the procedure or the imaging there, and then bring them back. And this really allows space for us to bring that technology into the room and do it right at the bedside.
Okay. I guess I have a technical question now, because I have a friend who's a transporter.
Sure.
So within that career position, what happens with that job within the hospital?
We will still have great need for transporters.
Okay.
There are still many places that patients will need to go, whether that's the operating room, whether it's to a procedural unit like endoscopy or any of those different pieces, and most importantly, getting patients from the emergency department to the beds they need.
Okay. All right. New York City has experienced a series of hospital closures in recent decades, including Mount Sinai, Beth Israel, and Cabrini Hospital in Gramercy Park, and St. Vincent Hospital in Greenwich Village. Why is it important to operate Lenox Hospital at this location, and have you explored relocating to a different location, given that you need significant infrastructure upgrades?
So that's a great question. And if we look at a couple of those different closures, when St. Vincent's closed, Northwell came in and did a community needs assessment to understand why we couldn't build a hospital in that location. We ended up opening up the state's first standalone emergency department. And that building, which is now Northwell Greenwich Village Hospital, later on at the end of July, early August, will open the state's first standalone cardiac catheterization lab and inpatient beds, becoming really a micro hospital and building back care into that environment. So we see that across Northwell, where we're consistently looking at our hospitals, at our populations across the different boroughs, and investing in every single one of those locations. Unfortunately, it's not so easy to just say we're going to move everything that we do to a different location. The patients rely on us where we are. They rely on the 6 trained capabilities of getting to us. They rely on the services that we provide, and equally, our community does too. I understand there are multiple hospitals that are on the Upper East Side, but there are many, many, many people who live on the Upper East Side equally, and we need to provide services to those people.
Thank you. I want to recognize Councilmember Moya has just joined us remotely. What were your considerations in determining the appropriate zoning district to facilitate the renovation of this hospital? You want me to repeat that?
Yeah, yes, if you don't mind.
What were your considerations in determining the appropriate zoning districts to facilitate the renovations of this hospital?
So,
Thank you.
Chair Riley, if it's okay, I'll take that. So this was a long process, as Dr. Baker has indicated. When we started looking at the zoning for the site, we looked at the districts that existed there today, but we also looked at the precedent of other hospital institutions in the area, including on the Upper East Side. The C19 that we're proposing along Lexington Avenue is a zoning district that you would see in just every campus, other campus on the Upper East Side. That includes Mount Sinai, that includes the Memorial Sloan Kettering, it includes New York Presbyterian, it includes Hospital for Special Surgery. So that zone made sense for us as well. The mid-block zone, which is also a zone that you would see in many of the hospital institutions, campuses, it's one that also allows for that standard 10 FAR-based zoning for community facility. It has a lower potential for residential, and since this was a community facility project, it was a zone that made sense, that we felt was appropriate for the block. We also worked with city planning in terms of thinking about the zoning map, and so in terms of with city planning staff, and so that was also informed the decisions that we made.
So speaking about these different factors in the C19, can you explain the main difference between the C19 district proposed along Lenoxton Avenue and the C18 district proposed on the mid-block?
Sure. On the C19 is a 10, for a community facility project, there's actually relatively little difference. The base remains 10 FAR for both of those sites. For a residential, the difference is actually, if this were a residential project, the residential density in the mid-block would be lower.
Okay. I took a tour there last year with Dr. Baker, and I just wanted to confirm that you guys are addressing the congestion issue, because when we did walk around the block, Dr. Baker, we did see the huge congestion issue that was on 77th Street, I believe, right? Can you discuss your plan on addressing that issue?
Sure. We're ongoing trying to adjust it to begin with. On the 76th Street side, for example, we eliminated the use of the larger semi-tractor trailers that we used to have that would impose themselves into the middle of the street. So we have demanded from our vendors smaller trucks. Smaller trucks mean more deliveries, though, so there are more trucks that are going down the block again. So the new loading docks would allow for both the bigger and the smaller trucks, but they would not stick out into the street on the sidewalk or block any of the vehicular or pedestrian traffic. And you wouldn't see what we have going on behind closed doors. So that helps on the congestion on 76th Street. On 79th, the main congestion is due to our, 77th, excuse me, the main congestion is due to our ambulances. We receive thousands of patients a year in our ambulances, and as they come down the block, they are trying very quickly to take that patient inside. And so that quickness can be at the cost of allowing traffic columns to move down the street. And that's what we want to change with bringing the ambulances into our building, so that they turn in, you don't see them, they don't block as they are unloading, they don't block at all from that perspective. The patient goes quicker into our facility and doesn't have to experience, again, the weather as they do so. The other pieces of congestion is that we have a lot of pedestrian traffic that makes its way down 77th Street because all of our entrances to our hospital are on the street side rather than the avenue side. So while patients come out and our team members come out of the subway, they then turn and go down that block, causing a lot more traffic down the block than they otherwise would. And what our intent is to put all of those entrances adjacent towards the Lexington side so people can come in very quickly, be off the street, and then not bother.
So there will be no entrance on that side of
Correct.
77th Street?
Correct.
Okay. Why is it necessary to create a new special permit in order, why is it necessary to create a new special permit in order to facilitate this renovation instead of mapping a zoning district with more density?
The value of having a special permit as opposed to a zoning district itself, the zoning district would be a roadmap that allowed for any volume, any kind of institution to use that additional density without there being any sort of controls. The special permit establishes the development envelope so that it's clear where the development will occur, that it'll be located primarily on the Lexington Avenue frontage. So there's a certainty associated with the special permit because it's project specific than a simple zoning map, which would be available to any institution and any use that would be able to take advantage of that additional density.
Okay. I just have one more question now. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Powers for his lines of questions. Can you please explain what kind of regulatory approvals are needed from the New York State Department of Health in order to move forward with this renovation and what the process of obtaining those approvals entails?
So the process of obtaining the regulatory approvals through the Department of Health at the New York State is part of the CON process, the Certificate of Need process. That is a process that happens after a positive outcome on a ULURP and you know what you're building and we design the hospital. Then we will be working with the state on achieving those Certificate of Need component pieces to their agreement. We have already presented to the Department of Health. We went up in advance about a year ago now to talk with them because we know that that will be a complex process given the nature of this project. They are very excited about the project. They're very excited about the renovation and the modernization of the hospital and understanding that this investment in healthcare is duly needed, particularly in New York City. So it will certainly be a long process that we have to work very closely with the state on, but it's one that ultimately I think that we will achieve that CON.
Thank you, Dr. Baker, and thank you to the panel. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Powers for his questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Riley, the Chair Riley. Thank you guys for that testimony. I have a long set of questions. I just want to just pick up from where the chair left off on the certificate of need process. Can you just elaborate on what would the timing of that be? When would you go to the Department of Health for the certificate of need? What that process looks like, what they will be looking at, and when you would expect to get a determination on that?
The duration and timing, I won't be able to answer today. I'll gladly get back to you on that. And this is a process that goes back and forth in terms of the Department of Health having a requisite amount of information they're going to need on our programming, what changes there, whether that's the change from 450 beds to 475, the change in our emergency department, all of these different pieces, and we showcase the need through a complex, very specific process with strategic planning and looking at what those needs really are from a healthcare standpoint. It includes a financial viability assessment, it includes a healthcare equity assessment in that CON, but it will be, I believe that it will be at least a year-long process in terms of working with the state on this. It's not uncommon to go through a certificate need with the department. We do multiple aspects of that. Sometimes we have what's called a limited CON if we're changing something just on a small basis in the hospital. We need that same process when we looked at the Northwell Greenwich Village site and opening up the catheterization lab in the inpatient beds. We went through the same process. So we have avenues working with our corporate sponsors at Northwell in really making certain that we can achieve this.
Okay, appreciate that. And if you can let us know as you get information after the hearing about what a general expectation is around timeline, that would be helpful. Just to jump into a lot of big questions here. I'll start at the sort of the big level here. Obviously, you come into a proposal, come into a process like this with a level of uncertainty. The plan is varied. Still a lot of conversations to go. What is the alternate plan here, if there or what is the alternate scenario if this doesn't move forward? We're in obviously a conversation. I think we all agree it's a hospital that needs modernization. It's a patchwork of buildings from various centuries. But if this did not move forward, what would be the plans for Northwell with the hospital, and what would be the alternate scenarios?
So we don't have a formalized alternative plan at the moment that says this is exactly what we do if this process does not end in a positive result. Part of that is something we have to go back and really think very strongly about what that will mean and what that will do. The aspects and the need of the project are very real, and they will have very real implications on the ability of Lenox Hill to offer the care that it does for the next decade and generations to come. Again, we saw this at St. Vincent's. We saw the need at St. Vincent's. We saw St. Vincent's actually apply for a rezoning, and that didn't actually go through, and St. Vincent's closed. The same with Mount Sinai, Beth Israel. When we look at what they were doing from afar, there was a lack of an investment in the infrastructure side. There was a lack of ability, again, to rebuild due to zoning regulations and all these different pieces. And this, unfortunately, causes massive repercussions into the ability to operate healthcare. That is something that we're going to have as a very real piece. It will be very real about looking at the hospital of the future of what Lenox is actually able to provide within the space that we have. We will, of course, do our very best to assure that we continue what we can, and we will certainly look at every available option to us outside of this as to what could be done. But there is no formal proposal of an alternative.
And what services do you think would be most impacted if you did not modernize or renovate or?
Yeah. So I think the services that would be most impacted first is our emergency department. Where 50,000 some patients a year rely on the emergent care that we offer them in a very small space that continues to grow. Beth Israel's emergency department unfortunately shuttered. All emergency departments got busier, including ours, at both Lenox Hill as well as Northwell Greenwich Village. And we see, again, with what we see in administration and the budgets, that that's likely to continue to happen in many different hospitals without investment. So emergency care would certainly be something that would suffer. We'd have to look very careful at behavioral health. We'd have to look very careful at reducing our maternal child and our mother-baby care. We'd have to think strongly about the pediatrics that we offer, and equally some of these other very important services like stroke. The reason these are the services that are less entangled in everything else that we do, and that we can take a look at how we would have to unfortunately reduce and or cut them. They're necessary services, and they're not services that we want to do this with. This is not an ideal situation for us, nor something that we would want. But that is what we're looking at.
Thanks. Will Northwell Lenox Hill commit to maintaining the permanent use of maintaining permanent hospital use on the entire lot? And are there any plans at any point to change any part of the campus back into residential or any other use?
We are fully committed to hospital throughout our block with no change or plans to develop anything residential.
Okay.
Can I just,
yes.
small detail? The application has a 2,500 square foot pharmacy retail space on Lexington Avenue. So that is the very small exception to the 100% community facility.
Got it. Appreciate that nuance. I think we mostly would consider that within. As you know, the community members, but the community board's resolution had called for capping the height at 215 feet across the entire lot. What kind of renovation is possible within the existing footprint? And if you were to attempt to try a renovation in this footprint, can you tell us what you would be capable of?
So there are massive challenges to actually renovating and rebuilding within what we currently have. When you look at a building that is built in 1913 or 1930, you have to understand the underlying infrastructure of what's used. Even in the 1970s, galvanized plumbing, radiant heating, these types of things, which are not modern standards of how you would really want to care for patients and really offer their comfort equally. Anytime we touch anything within the hospital, we bring it to its current code, and that causes everything to be bigger. So any renovation in our hospital generally means a reduction in how many beds that we have or in the services that we can really do if we were to fully renovate. I understand the community's desire for a lower height. What I struggle with is that we have a neighbor in the Carlisle between Madison and Park Avenue, which is at 436 feet. And I'm not quite certain, while a hotel with resident component piece to it is allowable at that level, equally across our immediate block are multiple buildings which are higher than 210. There's a 500-foot tower on 77th and 2nd Avenue. And the list goes on of buildings which are over 400 to 500 feet in the Upper East Side. So I struggle with understanding why you want to limit the ability for us to provide care to communities and to patients, which is an altruistic vision in what we're doing based on this height.
Yeah, understood. And I think that the aspiration here still is to try to make sure that the space being used here is not only kind of like urgent if necessary to the uses being associated with it, but also that with the construction timeline and other things that get associated with larger scale construction, that that for residential neighbors, they don't feel overwhelmed or pick the term by that. Obviously, some of the things that we talk about, you know, modernizing is including the use of single rooms from double rooms. Is that a requirement? And if so, for new construction, if so, can you just point us to where, or more importantly, have you investigated like a hybrid model where you'd have some private rooms and you have some shared rooms? There might be some services or short-term care where somebody might care or matter, or, you know, whatever the term is, less to, and also even to their outpatient outcomes might matter less. Would it be possible to renovate the hospital and continue to offer double bedrooms? And can you talk to us about what is required here?
So there is a regulation within New York State that new builds of hospital rooms are required to be single-bedded. New York State is not alone in this endeavor. We see this across the country, and that is really the standard of care. When we look at the use of a mixed model of single and double beds, we have that now, and unfortunately it leads to inequity. And it leads to us making choices on which patients can have what, whether it's a medical need due to an isolation or whether it's not a medical need, and then therefore we have to make this choice of who gets it. We don't want to be in that situation again because we find that it's not the right thing to do clinically. When we look at the build of a new single-bedded room, it will be bigger than what would currently qualify in previous code as a double-bedded room. So any level of that, no matter what level of care that's provided in that, any new room is automatically going to have a better experience for the patient than that previously existing double-bedded rooms. And then we simply can't build double-bedded rooms. If it were possible, they would be twice the size as any one of the single-bedded rooms. That's kind of the nature of how they would be, and then the entire zoning and massing would be bigger. So we have looked at that. We understand that it's a model that we live at the moment. We don't think it's the right model, and that's why we're trying to move to all single-bedded rooms.
How does the proposed height of the hospital today compare to the heights and square footage of other hospitals on the Upper East Side?
So we have that in one of our slides. If you want to go back one slide, I think. If somebody on Zoom is listening. There we go. So this is what the maximum building height looks like from our hospital competitors. And so when we really look at where we are, you can see that the shortest of this is HSS, currently 194 feet. But you see anywhere from NYU all the way through to MSK being between 374 and 430 feet, with MSK's newest pavilion being higher. So we're not asking to outbuild what a hospital would normally build in terms of height in that perspective. Equally, what was brought up before in our process of city planning was this idea of how much square footage do you really need, and why do you need so much square foot? And it's easy to take a number and say that it's big and twisted in that regard, but when you look at the slide previous to this, you will see that we will still be the smallest campus of those of our Manhattan competitors. So while I understand that we are smaller now, we will still remain smaller. And so we are not trying to outgrow the clinical services that we offer, nor are we trying to compete with NYP Columbia or Mount Sinai MSK in terms of the campuses that they have in Manhattan.
Got it. What's the current occupancy rate of the hospital, average?
So we generally operate based on an average daily census of around 80%. There's great literature and benchmarks that exist to show that that is a good place to be, in particular when you have as many double-bedded rooms as we do. The challenge with a double-bedded room, again, like I said, is that you could have a patient who's waiting in the emergency department who is a man, and there's a bed available, but it's in a room with a woman, and we can't then put that person immediately in that bed. But the number of computations that exist on there just continue to grow, because it's not just gender. It's, do you have an infectious disease that we can expose to a brand new patient who comes out from a knee replacement? Because you shouldn't have those in the same room. Do you have, particularly in the fall and winter time, RSV, flu, A, B, COVID, all of these different pieces, all of which we test for prior to allowing a patient to go in a room, so that we make certain that they're safe, and that causes great problem operationally. No hospital is able to operate 100%. It's just not possible from a way that patients come and go throughout. So that is, again, around where we are at 80% now.
Thank you for that. Obviously, a lot of this conversation is about, and as we talked about, these sort of services inside the building. So whatever numbers we're looking at, it's sort of end of the day about, patient care, and it is about what is kind of, I don't want to say necessary, but let's use the word necessary inside the building here. What opportunities are there to shift some of the services here off-site to other locations or nearby to accommodate some of the concerns that have been raised? Have you looked at other sites to be able to put some of the services here? Obviously, some of it's mechanical space, other things that become necessary to operate any sort of building here. But can you just talk about the process of looking at other sites, either nearby or elsewhere, to look at how to shift some of these off this location to another location?
Absolutely. So this is something we look at on a regular basis. One, there are natural flows with healthcare where things that used to have to be done in the hospital no longer have to be done in the hospital. Those naturally tend to come out of the hospital, and we work with the multiple departments on assuring that that occurs. Often, though, those can be backfilled with more complicated care as there becomes more complicated surgeries, more complicated diseases, as our population, again, tends to age, live longer, have multiple comorbidities. With that said, we've taken a look at our other sites with Northwell Greenwich Village. There's a commitment to opening up inpatient beds there. There's a limited number of beds that we can do, but again, looking at that and trying to keep that community that exists there that may need admission in that community, we know that's important. Equally, we look at a site that we have, Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital on 64th and 2nd. We moved the entire of our medical oncology teams there, and that is where they are currently. We took them out of the hospital because it was not an inpatient need. So we're consistently looking at those different pieces in terms of what we can do. What we're left with in the remainder there are still a myriad of services that require an inpatient environment. When we look at a stroke patient, for example, a patient who comes in with the signs and symptoms of a stroke, they come into the emergency department. They're seen by an emergency department physician and all of the clinicians there. They're then seen by the neurologist and the neurology team. If they go then immediately to imaging, so that imaging has to be present in the hospital to be able to see whether that stroke is present and where it is present. They are often then given an intervention to remove that clot, which requires the interventional suite, the neurosurgical team, and everything from that perspective. And then they end up in the ICU before they end up in a tele unit before they end up being discharged. So that is the complexity of something like a program that causes it hard to move fully out.
Thanks. You plan to remain open, obviously, during the renovation. Can you talk to us how operations will continue during construction and what steps will be taking to minimize disruption to patients? And I guess a question that people have asked is, if you are a patient in the hospital while undergoing construction, what is that experience? Is that going to be an experience that is going to be pleasant? And how will you ensure their sort of good patient outcomes and safety while living in sort of a construction area?
Right. Understood. And understand that nobody, wants to live in the house that they're renovating, and I understand that aspect of things. We have multiple teams looking at different mitigation efforts. We have projects that are construction projects that are ongoing in the hospital as we speak, and we have to work with our patients to understand that. So when we redesigned our mother-baby facility to be, again, this is a patient population that we now have the ability to offer single-bedded rooms to, but to do that, we had to change some things that required some construction. We then worked with the teams on the tiers above and below them to assure that it was done in the least disruptive way possible. Equally then, rebuilding one of our intervention suites that caused noise down to mother-baby, and that's something that we then had to work very closely with the teams on that mitigation, the hours, when we're working, and how we make it best for those patients. So we will continue to find every avenue we can to make this as best an experience for the patients. But first and foremost, as a healthcare entity, safety is at the center of what we do. And I think that there's a lot of discussion that suddenly this construction, for some reason, is going to be the most unsafe construction. There have been no less than 5 major construction projects in a 10-block radius around us in the last 5 years. We haven't seen any substantial impact to that from a safety perspective, from an injury perspective, from an environmental perspective. There are construction component pieces, I understand, where it does cause different levels of congestion and whatnot during those. I won't pretend that it doesn't. But the safety of it has been maintained. And we've shown that in our 3rd Avenue build. It's been one of the most safe environments that we've been able to operate. We have doubled down on what that means and what that looks like, and we will continue to do that for our community.
And for let's go not from the people in the building, people nearby outside the building. 9-year construction timeline is obviously could very well be a very significant burden for the neighbors. Late night noise, early construction, noise, dust, obviously a nuisance to your daily patterns of life. I know you've distinguished between interior and exterior construction. What portion of the construction timeline is going to be external versus internal? How are you going to ensure compliance with noise ordinances? How are you going to make sure the neighbors can live peacefully? What is the expectation around late night noise and weekend can work? And let's start there.
So a couple of things. There's no one more aligned with trying to drive down the duration of this project than me. I understand fully the impact that not only does it have to the community, but to our patients. And given the need that we're presenting, the faster we get that need, the better that our patients will experience the care that they deserve. I'm fully confident that through a successful ULURP process, we'll be able to then subsequently decrease the construction time period. Right now, what we are putting forward is an envelope, not necessarily a building. It's the ability to build that building within that envelope. After that process is approved, we can then go to our teams, work with our architects, work with our construction teams, and say, what can you do offsite? What can you do on-site? What can be done modularly? How can you think about construction in a modern world that will compress that time frame? I'm fully confident we'll be able to do so. Right now, it's a 9-year construction period. As you indicated, it is down from 11. I understand the community would like it down further, and that's not as much of a reduction they would like, but it is still a good percentage of time. Of that 9 years, in option 1, 6 years is external, and the remainder is internal. And of option 2, 6.5 years is external, and the remainder is internal. We will have to, again, work with our communities, and we fully intend to set up a task force, as we agreed to with Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine in that process of the ULURP, to make certain that we are listening, to make certain that we are making our community aware. We have done that with 3rd Avenue. Just as a highlight from that perspective, we worked very, very closely with the Wagner School, which is adjacent to our 3rd Avenue project. When it came time to AP exams, we paused all construction so that they had a noiseless environment for the AP exams. We want them to get the 5s they deserve to be able to go to college and utilize those scores. We're going to have to continue to work with our community in those types of examples on an ongoing basis throughout this duration, and that is our intent to do so.
As part of the task, thank you for that. As part of the task force, will you commit to having a member of the community board on there? Will you have a representative from the local neighborhood and the coalition on there? And so those are 2 questions, and then who do you anticipate will be on that task force?
I look forward to working with you to define who is on there.
Okay. Well, I would start with those 2 recommendations.
Absolutely.
Are you committed to hiring union labor as part of any project you do?
100%.
The neighbors have raised concerns about costs of renovation that will be passed on to patients. Do your reimbursement rates vary about whether a patient is in a private or shared room?
No.
Will Medicaid and Medicaid cover private rooms? Can you guarantee that healthcare costs won't increase because of upgrade facilities?
So Medicare currently reimburses a single-bedded room as it does a double-bedded room. In fact, Medicare doesn't know that a patient is in either. The way that hospitals are reimbursed is based on something called a diagnosis-related group. That's the predominant way of reimbursement, which is regarding the diagnosis rather than actually the room type, whether that's ICU, otherwise single or double-bedded rooms. We see, for example, Intermountain Healthcare. There's an Intermountain Medical Center that I spent a lot of time with them, just learning from them last year. They have only single-bedded rooms, and they have a population that is heavy on Medicare and Medicaid in the state of Utah. While the Medicaid might be different, the Medicare is not, and that is fully reimbursed as it is across the country, and as we see it in our institution currently.
And just want to go back to the first question before that. When you say that no, you said very clearly no, that reimbursement rates do not vary whether a patient is in a private or shared room. Can you just elaborate on?
So right now, unfortunately, the way that a single and a double-bedded room, the cost difference is that due to the inequity of the ability to provide everybody in a single-bedded room, we imply a charge for the guarantee of having a single-bedded room if you do not need one from a medical necessity. If you come in with something that requires isolation, we put you in a room that is isolated. That's a medical need. There's no increased or change in any aspect of the cost of care. If you say, I simply do not want to be in a double-bedded room, I demand a single-bedded room, there is a charge associated with that to attempt to assure that you can have that. That's the real difference in what happens between a single bedded and a double bedded. But on the reimbursement side, there's no change.
Okay. I wanted to just talk a little bit about community improvements in this area, being that even today, I think we've talked about a number of concerns that exist today. And regardless of where this proposal stands, I think there are some improvements that deserve consideration and conversation. You guys are a major user of this area and this block. Which for the neighbors today live with a number of issues that you mentioned, whether it's about ambulances or deliveries or just like the sort of wear and tear of a lot of foot traffic coming in and out of that area. For a lot of the, I'm sure, businesses in that area, I'm sure they deeply appreciate having a large footprint there. But for anybody who's stood out there, I've stood out there many times on the campaign trail, that subway station. I know how, and in my daily job, I know how trafficked it gets, and not just the hospital, but of course you are a major user there. We'd love to talk more about just existing things. So, for instance, the sort of traffic patterns in the area lead to lots of different conditions around the streetscape. We talk about the ambulances today. We talk about just like trash and sanitary conditions, which we get frequent complaints about at this intersection. I just start with a more broad question here, which is, as a major stakeholder and a neighbor here, what are some commitments you believe today you are willing to make around helping maintain better street conditions? Obviously, we'll talk about ambulances in the context of this project, but either way, sort of figuring out how to handle deliveries and ambulances in a different manner, and other improvements that you might be willing to discuss as part of your just role and responsibility in the neighborhood today and moving forward. Sure.
I don't know that we'll be able to come up with definitive answers or solutions to what you're saying, but more than willing to work on this. We're a microeconomy to the Upper East Side. We have, as you pointed out, 5,000 team members, and we essentially live and eat on the Upper East Side for a good portion of the day. We're purveyors of Butterfields, of Don Filippo's, of Rap and Run. You name the establishment that has existed there. We have individuals who are consistently eating there, including the visitors who come to our hospital. We need to do better with the streetscape, and our intent is to do that in the project, but there are certain things that you and I can work on from a perspective of what that looks like now, including redesigning the corner of 77th and Lexington such that there's not a massive puddle that exists there that causes all sorts of different dangers and safety issues and issues with trash. So all of those things I think that we can work together with and ensure you and the community that we intend on being very good community neighbors.
We will get you a list. I want to just do the last few questions because I know we have a lot of members of the community I'd love to hear from. In the existing plan today, I just want to dive into a couple of details about the existing plan that in terms of I think there's probably a slide on there, but just the different floor heights and sort of pieces of the plan. For instance, you have certain floors in the plan that are like today are 13 stories. You have other ones that are 13 and a half, I think, and 16. I might have done the half in the wrong place, but 13 and a half and 16 feet, different size floors for patient rooms. Can you just talk us through, I think we've asked this, but just talk us through why there's a variation between different rooms in terms of what they represent for the patient beds and whether there is an ability to sort of equalize those.
Gladly. It's a bit complicated, and so I'm going to call on a friend and colleague here, Jonathan Cogswell.
Hi, Jonathan Cogswell. I'm the VP of Design and Construction for Northwell. So the 13.5 floor-to-floor heights that you see on the lower section are there because our existing floor-to-floor heights are 13.5 feet, and we have to make those consistent across the block to be able to create floor plates that are usable across the block. You will note that we actually have one floor plate in the new tower section that actually does not align because from an OR perspective, we just can't achieve that 13.5-foot floor-to-floor height. And it's really a combination of structure of the building, the drop beams that come down to support the building itself in tandem with infrastructure that's required to run above the ceiling line. As we look at the building and trying to maintain floor plates that are as consolidated as we can, you will note that we have kind of spread our mechanical spaces to the rooftop, to a median floor, and down in the cellar level. That requires us to bring risers up through the building, and the ductwork that we are required to run in the ceiling line to get to all of the spaces around the outside is thus a little bit larger. If we wanted to squish that floor-to-floor height, it would require us now to actually add square footage to the floor plates to put decentralized mechanical spaces to reduce that ductwork size so that we can just continue to distribute the volume of air that's required to support all the spaces.
But you're talking about getting essentially wider versus taller, am I right about that?
We would either have to get wider or taller for us to add the square footage that we would need to bring mechanical spaces, decentralized mechanical spaces versus the centralized.
Have you guys looked at moving some of the mechanical space either to more subsurface? I mean, obviously this is like a big, when you look at the plan, a big piece of it is that internal mechanical space in the mid-block, in the mid-building, and certainly a lot that's like at the top and high. I know some of it, I believe is subsurface today, which I believe is where the hospital exists below there today. I could be wrong with that. Have you just thought about moving more of that subsurface to try to free up that space, or relocate or move or even amend the size of some of that space that's there today and with the mechanical space?
I think the challenge with additional subsurface mechanical is kind of twofold. For us to achieve additional subsurface mechanical, we would have to dig down further, which then brings us to the challenge of noise and an elongated schedule, that we've talked about. But it also then increases the size of vertical risers. If we take, say, that middle mechanical room and we take that and put it subsurface, I now have to go further with all of the services that I'm bringing from a centralized mechanical room, which thus makes it larger because I'm supplying more spaces, which is why we kind of try to break it in thirds. So you can feed up and down, you can feed down, and you can feed up, and to reduce the size that you need of the vertical members of the infrastructure system.
Okay. I have a lot more questions, but I also have a lot of people who are here to testify, and I want to give them the opportunity to be able to do that too, and hear from folks from community and others that are invested in this project as well. So I'll hand it back to the chair, Kevin Riley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers. There being no more questions, this panel is excused. For the members of the public, thank you. For the members of the public here to testify, please note that witnesses will generally be called in panels of 4. If you are a member of the public, sign up to testify on the proposal. Please stand by when you hear your name being called and prepare to speak when I indicate that you may begin. Please also note that once all panelists in your group have completed their testimony, you will be excused as a group, and the next group of speakers will be introduced. Once removed, participants may continue to view the live stream broadcast of this hearing on the council's website. Members of the public will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please do not start until the Sergeant at Arms has started the clock. We currently have 38 people in person and 20 online, so we will get to online testimony within an hour to an hour and a half. Okay. The following individuals who I call should come up now to the witness table to testify. We're going to start first with Sharon Pope Marshall, Marina Tassan Solit, Valerie Mason, and Nuha Ansari. The following panel after this panel will consist of Jimmy Arguera, Thomas Rosant, Peggy Rosenblatt, and Hank Soderlund. We'll begin first with Ms. Sharon Pope Marshall. And please remember, you have 2 minutes. When you hear the Sergeant at Arms say that you end, please start wrapping up in 5 to 10 seconds. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Chairperson Riley and Councilmember Powers. My name is Sharon Pope Marshall, Executive Director of Civitas. Civitas opposes the Lenox Hill expansion plan as presented for 3 reasons: its massive floor plate, its height, and its 10-year build program. Civitas supports a modernized Lenox Hill Hospital. However, the deadly combination of size, height, and build program will conspire to destroy a neighborhood, and including its livability of the surrounding neighborhoods at the expense of a grossly out-of-scale institutional expansion. We ask that the City Council modify the Lenox Hill Hospital development proposal as presented, consistent with community concerns. The building is still too tall, the timeline is still too long, and there is significant encroachment in the mid-block. That's the end of my remarks, but I also want to add that the community has endured significant institutional expansion over the past several years, and that is something that I think that the council should consider. We have several hospital facilities, institutions, at least 2 who are in the process of either planning to expand or in the construction mode. The community is overwhelmed, and we appreciate if you take that into consideration.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Marina.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Marina, and I just graduated from high school, and I'm testifying against Northwell's proposal. If a developer were to request 9 zoning variances which exceed the current zoning limits by 250 to 500% and take 10 years to do that construction in the middle of a dense residential neighborhood, they would arguably be thrown out summarily for making a ridiculous proposal. Yet Northwell, because it is a healthcare provider, wants you to believe that the benefits of this project outweigh any harm. Over 7,000 signatures on our petition, over 400 attendees at every public meeting, thousands of letters submitted by our neighbors and other community groups in opposition to the project declare that this is simply not true. The Upper East Side has the highest hospital beds in resident areas in New York City. It is referred to as, quote, bedpan alley, and does not need any more beds, being served by the largest and best hospitals in the world. Northwell wants to change Lenox Hill from being the successful community hospital it has been for the past 160 years into its Manhattan flagship, competing against its largest competitors. Northwell is building for ego and market share, not for market need, and is trying to do this in a small area where their dream simply does not fit. We've provided expert testimony about the harm to our community, about the needs for healthcare in other areas of Manhattan and the outer boroughs especially, about the increased cost that this over $2 billion development will create for all patients and insurers, and all for the net gain of 25 beds. You've received numerous letters from parents and clergy and elderly residents about how this decade of construction will ruin their lives. And we beg that this council to reject the request and send Northwell back to work with the community to develop a sensible and affordable plan, as Community Board 8 did when they rejected the proposal by a margin of 2-1 and asked for a new submission. You should do the same, and any zoning variances granted should be provisional, and that if Northwell does not build as permitted within 5 years, the variance will be rescinded. Northwell should not be able to resell this property with new zoning to a builder who could never get such variances granted.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Valerie.
Good morning. I'm Valerie Mason, and I'm the chair of Community Board 8, Manhattan Community Board 8. It's nice to be with all of you. We have been discussing this project at Community Board 8 for many years. I believe, have a copy of our resolution, and I will be submitting written testimony. I just want to take this opportunity to sort of talk to the status of this plan. And I think it would behoove the City Council to also look back at the hearing that the City Planning Commission conducted. What has been happening here is a lot of questions are being asked, but we are not really getting really definitive answers. Is something wrong? People seem distracted. Okay, so anyway.
No, nothing's wrong. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get some silence in here so I can hear your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead,
Appreciate
Valerie.
that. So we disapproved this project. We felt we had to disapprove the project. We didn't feel that there was enough interaction between the hospital and the community, talking about these very issues. I mean, we're 50 days away, assuming that you approve this, 50 days, less than 50 days away from the vote of the City Council to approve this monstrous building. And when I say monstrous, I'm not commenting on the quality of the construction or anything like that. It's just a huge project. Dr. Baker cites a building at 77th Street and 2nd Avenue. That's a completely different zone, and if the City Council and the City of New York wants to tell us that we have a 210-foot height limit on 2nd Avenue, I'll walk away today very happy. I don't think that's going to happen. But what is being asked for is a huge ask, and we are not seeing where the benefits lie. I also think we have been left out of the process in many, many ways, and you'll hear that from the communities here. Our disapproval, I mean, our community board worked really hard on this project, and I think Councilman Powers can attest to that. And we have been disregarded at every turn, and we're asking the City Council to put this project on hold and put it back to where it belongs. It is incredulous to us that someone would come forth with such a huge project and not have a plan B if it doesn't go forward. And you heard that here today. There is no plan B. And we shouldn't have to suffer for it.
Next, we hear from Nuha.
Chair Riley, Council Member Powers. My name is Nuha Ansari, speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side, to express our strong concerns about the proposed redevelopment of Lenox Hill Hospital by Northwell. Friends believes that at its core, this is a zoning issue. Northwell is requesting an enormous upzoning of the hospital site that would completely upend the carefully designed zoning framework that has long protected the character of Lexington and Park Avenues and their low-rise mid-blocks. The city's own planning documents underscore this. A 1983 Department of City Planning report described Lexington Avenue as a uniquely narrow, retail-oriented corridor with a, quote, very special neighborhood character, end quote. The character has been protected for decades through community-driven planning and zoning tools that support livable, contextual development in one of the city's densest neighborhoods. Northwell's proposal includes a 436-foot tall tower with oversized floor plates, completely out of scale with the surrounding area. This is poor planning and a sharp departure from zoning principles that have served this area well. We support the need to modernize hospital facilities, but Northwell has failed to present a more reasonable alternative or to consider its broader role within the city's healthcare network at large. Whether the bulk is placed on Lexington Avenue or shifted to the mid-block, the result disregards the neighborhood's urban fabric and sets a troubling precedent for institutional overreach. We urge the City Council to reject this proposal in its current form and ask Northwell to return with a plan that adheres more closely to as-of-right zoning and respects the scale and character of Lenox Hill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Councilman Powers.
Thank you. Just a very quick question. There was a discussion earlier about existing, I know one of them was just referenced, existing buildings that are in this sort of, some that are in the Upper East Side, some that are in the immediate vicinity that are at something like the 430 feet height, institutional in their own way. Hotels, one of them that was cited, others obviously residential. how does that factor into this conversation? You mentioned the institutional overreach, I think was the term. How does one assess this as having an institute? Like there's an institution nearby with a similarly situated building. That was kind of the example used. How do you assess that as some nearby buildings that have similar heights?
I think Dr. Baker mentioned the Carlisle Hotel, and that's on Madison Avenue, that's not Lexington. I was talking about the specific zoning district that was created in 1984 for Lexington Avenue. It's found the C18X zoning district. It's found only along Lexington Avenue and includes a 170-foot height limit. And then the mid-blocks as well were rezoned in 1985 with a 75-foot cap. And so I'm not exactly certain of what the zoning is for the Carlisle Hotel on Madison, but I think that this is comparing apples to oranges. I don't think that is...
What is the height cap on Madison Avenue?
Sorry?
What is the height cap on Madison Avenue?
I'm not sure of what it is, but I can...
Does anyone have a number?
I think it's 175.
175. Got it. Okay. Would you oppose the Carlisle if it was built today on Madison Avenue?
Well, it depends very much on the context. We haven't seen an alternative really from Northwell Health about Lenox Hill. We've, as Valerie mentioned at the hearing that was held at the City Planning Commission, there was a lot of testimony from the community that presented a lot of alternatives to Northwell to help them stay in this neighborhood, to renovate their facilities, and to have a height that would be acceptable to community members. And they didn't even entertain it, as we discovered when the City Planning Commission has sort of voted on it. We haven't seen any alternatives that were really sort of presented. And so we're wondering why they won't meet us halfway, like why they won't consider, a perfectly reasonable renovated building that is more contextual, that won't be so high and so bulky on narrow Lexington Avenue, and would be a much better solution for the community.
In fact, I'm sorry, Dan Garagnik, who is the commissioner for the City Planning Commission, he specifically asked what we think that the height should be. He specifically invited suggestions and recommendations, and Civitas's position is that it be below 400 feet, and that there is no longer any incursion into the mid-block, as well as a reduction in the massive floor plate, as Nuha has said, and also Valerie.
Just say that to me one time. 400 feet, under 400 feet, no mid-block, and
also the 10-year build program. At this juncture, it is hopeful that the City Council, under your leadership, will look at implementing modifications to the proposal consistent with the community's concerns. And mainly, it's the 10-year build program. It is also the building height, as I've said, as well as incursion into the mid-block.
Yeah.
Got it. So what on option 2 that exists today, it sounds like your only objection is to the mid-block piece of it?
That's a good question, Councilmember Powers.
I appreciate that. I thought of it myself.
Well, If it were left up to me, it would be lower than 395 feet. Because I am also concerned about the view corridor, particularly from the surrounding area and walking up Park Avenue, in fact. So from that perspective, we do not have a guarantee that they're going to build less than 400 feet. But there are other significant factors, and that's the 10-year build program. But Councilmember Powers, you know this to be true, that this community is burdened with hospital expansions, and it's overwhelming. And it's almost like a death of 1,000 cuts. You're not able to walk more than 10 blocks without experiencing some type of hospital institutional expansion. So we're hoping that under your leadership and guidance that this community could see some relief.
Can I just also
Sure.
in terms of, and I think Councilmember Riley mentioned this, in terms of the congestion and the heights of the buildings, every avenue on the Upper East Side is unique. Lexington is the narrowest of the avenues. When they showed the height precedent, the height healthcare zoning precedent chart, all of those other hospitals are on York Avenue primarily, which is a much wider avenue, which has a different zoning height limit. And you have to look at them in the context of what you're asking to build. And I think it's very nice of you to ask us, what we could live at a height, and it's sort of a little bit, if with all due respect, a little bit disadvantageous to us. We're not the ones with the architectural schematics, et cetera. I mean, the Community Board 8 worked very closely with MSK, and we approved their project conditionally. We didn't like the height, but they just came down 70 feet below 500 feet. So there is room to do this. We believe that the hospital can work with us to do this, but on this avenue in particular, the narrowest of avenues, it's already beyond congested along the sidewalks, et cetera. So you can't just say, even if there is a 400-foot build on Madison Avenue, it's a completely different profile for the avenue, and everything has to be looked at uniquely, I think. And I think also, too, in the context of this build, things are happening every day to the healthcare industry. What is Medicare going to cover? What is private insurance going to cover? I think that, again, we're looking for real modifications from the council, but at this point in time, given where we are, I think we can have modernization of this hospital without such a huge building in terms of mass and height. And it's just not the height, it's the mass of the building as well, and what it means, the spillover effect for the avenue. And I appreciate Councilmember Riley coming and actually walking the avenue to figure out what it's like over there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no more questions, this applicant group is excused. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to call on Jimmy Aguirre, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Tomas Rosant, Peggy Rosenblatt, and Hank Soderlund. The following panel will consist of Kate Steinberg, Marlene Schneider, Alan Harris, and Jessica Zhang. That will be the following.
Chair Riley, Tomas Rosant, I was on the panel. I won't be testifying.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. We'll begin first with Jimmy.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Aguirre. I was born and raised in Queens. Right now I'm currently living in Jamaica. And I am a proud local 28 member of the Union Building Trades. When we hear about hospitals closing in other parts of the country, it's discouraging. But here in New York, Northwell is doing something different. They're investing in healthcare and in the people who build the city. Upgrading Lenox Hill Hospital means jobs for skilled workers like me, jobs with fair wages, training, and dignity. It means young people can enter careers where they build something that lasts and provides for their families. We don't just need better hospitals, we need better futures. This project helps deliver both. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Peggy.
My name is Peggy Rosenblatt.
Hey, Peggy, can you press the button on the mic? There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
My name is Peggy Rosenblatt, and I've been a resident of the Upper East Side for over 50 years. I've been a member of the Auxiliary of Lenox Hill Hospital for over 30 years. I am currently the patient co-chair of the hospital's Surgical and Patient Family Partnership Council. My family and I have all been patients at Lenox Hill Hospital many times over the years. As an Upper East Side resident, I've seen the area change dramatically over the years. I've lived immediately adjacent to and in close proximity to many, many construction sites. I understand why those opposed to the project don't want to endure the imposition in their immediate neighborhood, but it's time to stand back and consider the greater good. As you've heard, Lenox Hill Hospital serves a broad reach of the city. After evaluating many aspects of patient experience through my work on inpatient surgical stays, I can say without hesitation that the need for an updated hospital is critical for the future care of the wide range of the population served every day. The proposed single-bedded rooms provide patients with more opportunities for quality rest, which is essential for a successful recovery. They also allow important segregation for infectious patients. Single-bedded rooms allow family members privacy with their loved ones, something that should be available for all. This is not a luxury, but a necessity. The demand for emergency services will not decline in the future. An updated and expanded emergency department will continue to save lives and treat a wide variety of medical problems. Updated operating rooms that can accommodate rapidly changing technology will benefit every surgical patient in the years to come. It is time to stand for the greater good. To my mind, it is irresponsible to accommodate the preferences of a few at the cost of sacrificing future quality medical care for the many. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Hank.
Hi, my name is Hank Soderlin. I represent the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Number 3. I've been fortunate enough to work, go to school, teach, and build the physical infrastructure of the Manhattan skyline. I care about our city deeply, and with that, Lenox Hill is the foundation of our city's healthcare system. In this time of economic uncertainty, I think it is of utmost importance that we create good-paying jobs. Not only good-paying jobs that are good for the community, but they allow the education, background, health insurance, retirement, and pension that is much needed in an economy that the rents are rising and you don't have that physical stability. This project is so important. It'll create so many good union-paying jobs. And with that, also investing in New York City's future. After COVID, we all realized that any improvement to our healthcare system is being proactive instead of reactive, which is necessary for our future healthcare needs, not knowing what they might be. Also with this project, not really impeding upon the physical blueprint of the existing project, I ask that the City Council does whatever it needs to do to make this project happen, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. If there be no questions, this panel is excused. The next panel we'll hear from consists of Kate Steinberg, Marlene Schneider, Alan Harris, and Jessica Zhang. The following panel will consist of Terrell Martin, Robert Foster, Cleveland Surreal, and Brett Thompson. We'll begin first with Kate Steinberg.
Hello everyone, my name is Katie Steinberg and I'm a 19-year-old girl who has lived on the Upper East Side my entire life, just 2 blocks away from Lenox Hill Hospital. I'm here today to urge you to vote no on the proposed extreme rezoning of Lenox Hill. This isn't just policy discourse for me, it's personal. My younger brother has experienced many life-threatening food allergies and has experienced anaphylactic shock multiple times in the past couple of years. Every single time, we've relied on Lenox Hill's emergency room to save his life. We don't have 20 minutes to wait. We have maybe 5, maybe 3 minutes. Losing immediate access to emergency care during a 10-plus construction timeline is not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. It's a matter of life and death for families like mine. This project would cause untold traffic, safety issues, and noise for the next 10 years, just so that the hospital can add 25 more rooms. I agree that there is a need to modernize healthcare infrastructure and that we should renovate and modernize, just not by building a 436-foot tower in the middle of a residential neighborhood. We're talking about a luxury development at the community's expense. A massive luxury tower and extreme upzoning doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood like ours. I think it would set a dangerous precedent for overdevelopment across the city and violate the scale and character of the Upper East Side. Our community deserves better. We're not asking for nothing, we're just asking for a smarter, a more transparent, community-centered hospital plan that puts people before profits. Please stand with me, my brother, and the families in my community and vote no to this extreme upzoning. Thank you.
Next, we hear from Marlene. Thank you, Marlene. Next, we'll hear from Alan Harris.
My name is Alan Harris. My wife is Rosalind. I oppose this. It is unconscionable that any consideration for new zoning be received before they correct their current despicable zoning violation at 122 East 76th Street. It's illegal, immoral, and unethical, and Lenox Hill Hospital in Northwell is not believable. We live right across the street from the entrance. Northwell is absolutely, completely, and currently violating the zoning regulation law in my rent-stabilized apartment building and has been doing so for 35 years with absolute, unabashed impunity. Acting as a slum landlord, they get rid of rent-controlled tenants. Allowing Lenox Hill to get the variance after corrupting this one is like giving a bottle of whiskey to a person pulled over for DUI and then telling them that it's okay to drive away and drink. We're harassed. We have no water for a year and a half. Lenox Hill came into our apartment, they're workers. They lied, they cheated, they stole, and they attempted to poison us with asbestos and lead. Our lives are endangered by their conduct. They have taken 25 apartments off the rental market. They hold 7 apartments warehoused, some for 20 years. Where's that revenue? They don't have a legal certificate of occupancy since 2000. They don't pay $130,000 in DOH violation fines. They fooled the government getting a mixed-use variance in 1989 by deceit, and they are fooling the government now. No issue of a variance should be issued until that violation is corrected. Lenox Hill does not care about the community. There are 10 hospitals just on the Upper East Side. Northwell has 23 hospitals and 700 ambulatory locations. Remember Christine Todd Whitman saying the toxins released pose no threat to health. My wife and I are both very old and extremely ill. We're isolated in the building like a mouse in a glue trap. We expect further retribution. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Alan. You're not old at all. Jessica, go ahead. Jessica, can you turn on the mic, please?
Thank you, Land Use Committee members and Council Member Powers, for the opportunity to
Alan, can you sit down until you're excused?
testify. My name is Jessica Zong, Senior Policy Manager for 32BJ Health Fund. The Health Fund provides health benefits to over 200,000 32BJ union members and their families using contributions from over 5,000 employers. We oppose rezoning to allow Northwell to expand in the most hospital-dense area of New York City because the expansion will contribute to increased healthcare costs for our members without meeting healthcare needs. Northwell's hospitals' exceptionally high prices and related business practices burden our members. For example, Recently, one of our members was charged nearly $19,000 for a procedure at a Northwell hospital. The health fund paid all but a $250 copay, and yet Northwell still billed the patient $8,000, insisting on thousands more than the actual charges for the service. This is a practice we see time and again with Northwell. A recent city report shows city employees are similarly burdened by these high prices, paying, for example, $1,000 for a 30-minute doctor's office visit at Lenox Hill, compared to the average of $390 across all New York City hospitals. Research shows that expensive hospitals' capital investments, like this one, lead to higher prices and a costlier healthcare system. The city should not be granting expansion rights to a private entity with prices and practices that disregard patients' healthcare affordability concerns. This rezoning will lead to a more unaffordable healthcare landscape in New York City, and our members will shoulder the costs of this multi-billion-dollar expansion during the project and for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no questions, this panel is excused. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to call on Terrell Martin, Robert Foster, Cleveland Sorrell, and Brett Thompson. The following panel will consist of Mia Wagner, Stephanie Reckler, Stacy Krusch, and Anthony Cohen. That will be the following panel. We'll begin first with Terrell Martin.
Good afternoon, Chair, Councilmember Powers. My name is Terrell Martin, and I'm a council rep with the New York City District Council of Carpenters. I also stand before you as a dues-paying union member, someone who has worked hard to build a life through the trades, and someone who deeply understands what it means to fight for opportunity, dignity, care, not just for myself, but for my family and my community. I'm here to speak from the heart in support for Lenox Hill Hospital redevelopment. This is about that mother who rushes her child to the emergency room in the middle of the night. This is about that elderly neighbor who needs consistent quality care close to home. My wife is a registered nurse. This is about healthcare workers who give everything they have every single day and deserve a facility that supports them. Right now, Lenox Hill is doing the best it can, but the building is holding it back. The infrastructure is outdated. The space is limited, and the people, patients, and staff alike are the ones who pay the price. This new hospital will change that. It will mean faster emergency care and the kind of advanced technology that saves lives. It will mean that when someone's loved one is in crisis, they won't have to worry if the hospital can handle it. They'll know it can handle it. And for workers like myself, the project is about good union-paying jobs that uplift people. It's about opening doors for young people who want a future in the trades, a pathway to the middle class. It's about showing that when we invest in our city, we invest in everyone, not just the buildings, but in lives. I respectfully urge you to support the Lenox Hill redevelopment. Let's give the city a hospital it deserves and a future that it needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Terrell. Next we have from Robert.
Hello?
Yes.
My name is Robert Foster, and I'm a proud member of the New York City District Council of Carpenters. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today in strong support of the Lenox Hill Hospital redevelopment project. This project is critical investment in both the physical and infrastructure of our city and the well-being of the people who live and work here. From a labor perspective, this project will create hundreds of good-paying middle-class jobs for union tradespeople. These are careers that support families, strengthen communities, and ensure the work is done safely, professionally, and at the highest standards. Our members are ready to build this project with pride and purpose. But the need for this project goes far beyond the economic opportunities. The current Lenox Hill facility is outdated and no longer meets the demands of modern healthcare. The dedicated doctors, nurses, and hospital staff do everything they can within the limits of the existing building, but are extremely limited. This redevelopment will bring back state-of-the-art hospital to the Upper East Side. It will mean faster emergency care and access to advanced medical technology. It will improve outcomes for everyone who relies on this hospital, whether they live in the neighborhood, commute to work nearby, or visit family in the city. When we approve this project, we are not just approving a building, we are supporting a healthier, safer, and more resilient New York. We are ensuring that our healthcare infrastructure keeps pace with the needs of our growing population, and we are putting skilled union workers to work on a project that truly matters. I respectfully urge the subcommittee to support the Lenox Hill redevelopment. This community deserves it, and it's time to act now. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Cleveland Sorrell.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, can you turn on the mic, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Cleveland Cyrus, proud member of the Local 3 and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I stand strong support of this project. I think it will increase our medical field as we are behind in New York City, the biggest city in the world. It will create jobs. I think more doctors are always needed, and it'll beautify our city. In time, I know construction, but it works when it's all done. This will strengthen our city in more ways than one. More hospitals will grow and expand at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, is there Brett Thompson here? Okay. There being no questions for this panel is excused. Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Mia Wagner, Stephanie Reckler, Stacy Krusch, and Anthony Cohn. The following panel will consist of Marco Tamayo, Anthony Guerrero, Robert Ruffolo, and Michael Grunert. We'll start first with Mia Wagner.
Hi. Is it on? Okay.
Yes, it's on.
Hi, my name is Mia Wagner. I'm Senior Health Policy Analyst at the Community Service Society of New York. CSS is a 180-year-old organization that seeks to build a more equitable New York for low and moderate income people and assists over 130,000 New Yorkers annually in accessing health care. On behalf of CSS, I would like to thank you for holding this hearing and for allowing the public to weigh in on the proposed expansion of Lenox Hill Hospital. The city should not enable a costly project that breaks zoning precedent and serves a well-resourced area, while other neighborhoods and boroughs lack hospital beds and cannot provide their populations with needed care. The Upper East Side has over 10 hospital beds per 1,000 people, which is more than 4 times the citywide average of 2.7 beds. Disparities also exist between boroughs. Queens only has 1.6 hospital beds per 1,000 people compared to Manhattan's 5.8 beds. The proposed expansion of Lenox Hill would add capacity where the city least needs it and likely increase the cost of care at the hospital. This year, the Lown Institute Hospital Index ranked Lenox Hill second to last in all hospitals in the state for inclusivity. Additionally, the hospital's overall equity rank is at the bottom 4% of all New York State hospitals. Alongside inclusivity, this metric considers pay equity and community benefit, demonstrating that Lenox Hill and this proposed expansion does not serve New Yorkers who need care most. Lenox Hill already has more beds than it can fill. For example, nearly a quarter of beds at Lenox Hill were available this past week. Meanwhile, only 3% of beds were available at Harlem Hospital Center. This proposed expansion would involve spending $2.5 billion on a facility that already has excessive capacity to serve its community. CSS strongly urges the city to reject Lenox Hill's proposed expansion and instead approve more modest renovations that adhere to current zoning laws. Downsizing this plan would allow Northwell to focus its efforts on the sectors of the system that most urgently need assistance and serve its population more equitably. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Stephanie.
Can you hear me?
One more. There we go.
Okay. I am in opposition to Northwell's current plans for Lenox Hill Hospital. I have lived all my life 10 blocks from the hospital. You might ask why an 81-year-old lady is so opposed to the Northwell plans when statistically I won't be alive when it is completed. Yes, I am in agreement that the hospital needs to be renovated. Northwell has owned it for 15 years and has done very little to modernize it. But the size and the bulk do not fit the site. It is an ill-conceived project. Either model tower is the equivalent of a midtown office building. It will destroy the the residential community. Can you imagine a healthcare facility meant to help people will kill the neighborhood? The Northwell proposal continues to blatantly ignore overwhelming community feedback. Thousands of residents, local organizations, and elected officials have voiced extreme opposition to the project. The project violates the character, scale, and fabric of a thriving residential community, and it undermines the principles of responsible urban planning. The tower is Northwell's plan to compete with the 5 world-class hospitals on the Upper East Side. It is a billboard advertisement. Instead, Northwell should strive to be the best community hospital in the city, where young families want to move here, where they set an example for other large cities. It should have an excellent ER and maternity wing. Northwell plans will kill our neighborhood. Please vote to downsize the Northwell project and create a micro hospital. Northwell could spend $250 million on Lenox Hill Hospital and invest the remaining funds in the areas that are hospital deserts. That is responsible city planning, and I thank you very much, and I will be submitting a much longer testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, we hear from Stacy.
Hi. Bravo, Lenox Hill, great performance. You know, I've seen it so many times I could practically give it myself, except I'm not buying what you're trying to sell. For 6 years, I've been involved in trying to make sense of this project. And while the players on the hospital team have changed several times over, I've been here the whole time, as have my Upper East Side neighbors and communities, steadfast in our opposition. Why? Because we're the people who live here, not the hospital staff who come into work and then go home somewhere else, or the transient patients or visitors. This is our home. All that for 25 more beds, and not one more hospital job, and not serving one more patient than they currently do. So the community would be under the shadow of a giant tower, while the patients have rooms with a park view and lots of visitors, rooms for lots of visitors and family to visit them. When they first proposed a 516-foot tower and came back with a smaller tower, they veiled that as a compromise, and it's not. We all know that trick. The community has in fact compromised, with the Community Board 8 outlining a plan that the community does stand by. Yes, they need to renovate and modernize and bring the facility up to 21st century standards, but not at this size and scale. And there will be union jobs for whatever size construction project there is. And Lenox Hill has been the worst neighbor imaginable. Their square block is the most disgusting block in the neighborhood. And then now they're promising to be a good neighbor moving forward. I don't believe it. These massive height and bulk buildings have no place in Lenox Hill or any other residential neighborhood. A structure of this magnitude would overwhelm the area and set a dangerous precedent. And I'm still waiting for one person who either doesn't work for Lenox Hill in some respect or is not a construction union member to go in opposition of this project. And the irony is they don't even need the kind of extreme expansion they're proposing. The east side is already grossly overbedded. It's not what Lenox Hill needs, it's what the people need. Thank you for saying no.
Thank you. And next we hear from Anthony.
Okay. Thank you. My name's Anthony Cohn. I'm an architect, and I'm a member of Community Board 8, and I also served on the Borough President's Task Force in 2019-2020. So I have also lived with this project for at least 6 years. But as an architect, I'm asking you today to look at it from a different viewpoint. Every building exists as a collection of assumptions formed into an architectural program, a document that is more than just an assemblage of rooms, but a statement of purpose. This proposal looks the way it does because of those assumptions which are treated by the applicant as categorical imperatives. The first is that the hospital must remain in its current location, despite the obvious changes to the community around it. Lenox Hill Hospital moved from downtown in the mid-19th century before the train tracks under Park Avenue were covered and Park Avenue became more than just a back street filled with stables. If there were not already a hospital in this exact location, would you build one here? That's the first assumption. The second is that the hospital must remain open during construction, lengthening the construction period. Third, the hospital that currently serves its community must double in size to accommodate the future, a future that even its most ardent advocates cannot predict. All of us have seen firsthand the growth of outpatient procedures. When I was born 73 years ago, my mother spent a week in the hospital. Mothers now take their babies home the next day. The fourth is that it is impossible or unnecessary to provide an elevator for the Uptown IRT or to provide any parking at all. If you look skeptically at those assumptions, as I have been trained by education and professional experience of over 40 years to do, you cannot in good conscience accept this proposal as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. There being no questions, this panel is excused. Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Marco Tamayo, Anthony Guerrero, Robert Raffolo, and Michael Grenert. The following panel will consist of Louis Utley, Todd Stein, Alida Camp, and Vanessa Arotson. We'll hear first from Marco. Yes, Marco.
Thank you, City Council members. I am Marco Tamayo. I'm an architect and Upper East Side resident. My firm designs passive, sustainable buildings that meet the highest energy standards. After extensive ASHRAE training, I can say without hesitation that Norwell's proposed hospital tower is unnecessarily massive. Norwell could cut at least 100 feet from the building's height without losing any medical space, simply by modernizing its outdated mechanical systems. Right now, up to 30% of the tower's height is wasted and oversized mechanical rooms and excessive floor heights. Even Norwell admitted at Community Board 8 that they are going to take a trial and error approach to energy systems, clearly proof that have no real justification for this bulk. Worse, their glass-heavy facade, inefficient ductwork, and oversized windows will turn the building into a giant radiator, wasting energy and failing to meet the New York City Local Law 97 net zero target. There is no excuse. Proven solutions exist. A passive building envelope with proper insulation and infiltration control. A geothermal system to eliminate bulky cooling towers and cut emissions. DOAs, fresh air with energy recovery, and chill bins to precise efficient ventilation, critical for operation rooms and patient recuperation. These systems would shrink the mechanical footprint, slash energy use, and cut the tower height by 100 feet, while delivering the full mechanical capacity Norwell says it needs. I urge the City Council to demand a smart, efficient design. No reward updated systems and institutional access. Our neighbor deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we hear from Anthony.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Guerrero. I'm a proud union member and serve as the political director for Sheet Metal Workers Local 28. I'm here today not just in leadership role, but as someone who understands what this project means on the ground for the workers, for the patients, and for all the New York City residents. Lenox Hill Hospital has served the city for generations. but the buildings are outdated and the people who rely on it, patients and staff, deserve better. This project is about fixing that. It's also about building modern, safe spaces for care and creating union jobs for the workers who keep this city moving. Northwell's investment is the right kind of vision. It says we're not backing down, we're building up. Healthcare and labor go hand in hand, and this is a chance to support both. Let's move this forward. Let's invest in people and progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Robert.
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Bob Rotolo, and I'm a representative of the workers of Local 28 sheet metal workers who understand what this project means, not just for Lenox Hill, but for New York's future. When we talk about investing in healthcare, we're also talking about investing in our economy. This redevelopment will put skilled members to work, electricians, plumbers, sheet metal workers, laborers, and more. It will also generate new roles in hospital operations and support local businesses in the neighborhood. In a time when hospitals are closing their doors across the country, we should be proud that Northwell is taking a different path. They're saying, let's build, let's invest, let's care. We urge you to support this vision, not just because it's right for today, but because it builds a stronger tomorrow. And I want to make a point of information. When we talk about these mechanical systems in these buildings, that's what my people build. We do the cooling towers on the roof, the subterranean work that you talked about, trying to bring it down to the bottom, and the middle of the building. Subterranean's being done away with because when the city floods, it floods. And it's gone. Then your hospital's shut down for months. So the idea of putting things in the basement, I'm hoping you lose that idea. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Michael.
Thank you, Committee Counsel. My name is Michael Grunnard. I'm a proud member of Local 3 International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and I'm here in support of this project. In today's healthcare climate, the trend is to shut down or cut back medical services in hospitals, especially when it comes to outdated, aging facilities that are in need of modernization. Northwell, on the other hand, is wanting and willing to invest in the future of New York's healthcare by updating and restructuring a facility which is over 100 years old. This project not only creates much-needed great union jobs for the working men and women of New York City, it also enhances the surrounding community and local businesses, all while ensuring New York City stays on the leading edge of healthcare, along with improving patient safety, dignity, and comfort when they need it most. Short-term discomfort of a few should not inhibit life-changing work and healthcare for the many. Thank you for your time and attention and consideration on this matter.
Thank you. This panel is excused. Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Louis Utley, Todd Stein, Alida Camp, and Vanessa Aronson. The following panel will consist of Dennis McSpeeden, Jeffrey LaFata, and Emily Du Bois. First, we'll hear from Lois. Lois, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lois. Thank you.
Sorry, Lois.
Yeah, I'm Lois Utley, a Manhattan resident and coordinator of a statewide network that's dedicated to ensuring that access to hospitals and other health facilities is equitable and affordable for all New Yorkers. I want to suggest to you that this project would increase already glaring inequities in access to hospital care across the city. And I really encourage you to look at this from a citywide perspective. The project would add hospital capacity where it is not needed, while other New York City neighborhoods are losing their community hospitals or have too few hospital beds, leading to overcrowding and long waits. As you've heard, the Upper East Side has 10.5 hospital beds for every 1,000 residents. That's 4 times the citywide rate of 2.7 beds per 1,000. Other areas of the city are in much greater need of more hospital capacity. Queens, for example, has only 1.6 hospital beds for every 1,000. Brooklyn, only 2.1. Staten Island, Chairman Riley, has only 2.3 hospital beds per 1,000 people. You know, that's where we need more hospital capacity, not the Upper East Side with all the beds it has. And frankly, Lenox Hill Hospital can't fill all the beds it has now. In reports to the state DOH, hospital executives said just this week they had 344 beds, not 450, 344, and 25% of those were vacant. Moreover, Lenox Hill Hospital does not provide, in my view, a fair share of hospital care for New Yorkers with low incomes. Only 18% of their inpatient discharges were covered by Medicaid in 2022. And of patients giving birth at the hospital's highly rated maternity service, only 15% were Medicaid enrollees. Compare that to hospitals across the city where 50% or more of the people giving birth are Medicaid insured. So I urge you, send this hospital back to the drawing board, downsize this large and expensive project into something more modest, and then encourage Northwell to invest the savings in adding hospital capacity where it's really needed in our city, like Staten Island, for example.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Todd. Hey, Todd, can you press the button? Thanks.
Thank you for having me here today. The proposed Lenox Hill redevelopment is not thoughtfully designed for the neighborhood where I was born 59 years ago this month. I was raised and still live in this neighborhood, and as a member of CB8, I followed the project, but today I speak as a concerned neighbor. The massive increase in building size isn't justified by the limited number of inpatient beds. If the goal is to serve more patients than inpatient capacity, not a hotel-like amenity should be the focus. My 91-year-old mother has been hospitalized 3 times this year, once in critical condition. Each time she waited days in an overcrowded ER before being admitted. That is dangerous, that kind of exposure at any age to other illnesses. Yet this plan does not address urgent need for more rooms, faster admissions, or adequate staffing. The hospital's location, already overwhelmed with subways and emergency traffic, can't support this scale of expansion. Lenox Hill is off Lexington Avenue, which is narrower than other major avenues and not equipped for this type of footprint. 5 years ago this week, I suffered a life-changing injury, 21 procedures, 9 major surgeries, a spinal cord. What mattered to me was immediate care, not being cared for the several weeks I spent in the hospital, not whether I had a single room or a private bathroom. Prioritizing same-gender room matching or visitor comfort over actual patient care is misguided. Keeping it open during the development will stretch a 9-year timeline likely to 15 years and completely out of touch. An entire childhood could be passed during this time. Hospitals are not hotels. They are meant to deliver care. This proposal fails to put patients first. I appreciate today having the opportunity to share my concerns. I urge the project to be put on hold until a plan is created that actually meets the medical and environmental needs of this community. I encourage Northwell to explore other locations rather than focusing on an overwhelming project that won't support the needs suggested. This will also, if they find other locations, create many union jobs. Thank you today for having me.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Alita.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing my testimony. My name is Alita Camp. As then chair of CB8, when Lenox Hill first presented this plan, I sat on the BP task force. I'm currently a CB8 member, though I speak individually. Modernization is necessary, but not this way. Hospital beds are needed in New York's hospital deserts. The acute need has grown since the pandemic, including in Lower Manhattan, as Beth Israel has closed. Tellingly, Lenox Hill brings patients from its emergency room in the Village to the Lenox Hill Hospital uptown, miles away, to be admitted. While he states that it has a hospital in the Village, when questioned, Dr. Baker acknowledged that it has only 8 beds. Lenox Hill intends to be a luxury destination. When it unveiled the plans, the website highlighted crystal chandeliers, spa-like amenities, a Michelin chef, and a quoted patient who liked being in the hospital so much she didn't want to leave. Even now, it talks about the views from the tower. Are the views a significant reason for the planned tower height? The hospital's location is a prime selling point. Perhaps it doesn't want to move to a hospital desert because no other hospital has a Park Avenue location. To credit height reduction from 500 plus feet is to treat imagination as reason. Lenox Hill rejected community input when I was chair and still rejects it. Compare MSK. Since there is more to do to appropriately scale this plan, as Councilmember Powers said, it would be appropriate to vote no until it becomes the best it can be for a community and hospital. If they get approval now, where is the incentive to make changes, including for late-night noise? Modernize, but not to build this opposed tower. Zoning and context must mean something. There are alternatives. And construction costs more in an occupied building. Do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath requires. The building will do harm to the community where it wants to be and the communities where it does not want to be. Last thing, please vote and advocate against the mayor's charter commission proposals that remove city council and community board input from some land use decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. You could go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Riley and Councilmember Powers. My name is Vanessa Aronson. I live on East 74th Street, and I'm a local community advocate. I joined Community Board 8, Committee to Protect our Lenox Hill neighborhood, our Lenox Hill neighborhood, Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts, the New York Landmarks Conservancy, Carnegie Hill Neighbors, Civitas, and thousands of community members, and strongly urging you to reject Lenox Hill Hospital's proposal in its current form and require the modifications recommended by CB8 are made. Due to the extensive scope of the proposed hospital expansion, there are significant negative impacts to the community and to city hospital infrastructure. Along with members of Community Board 8, I have worked diligently to analyze and assess this rezoning proposal since it was proposed over 6 years ago. The application would authorize a protracted hospital expansion to enlarge Lenox Hill Hospital far beyond what is permitted under current zoning, all for a paltry increase of just 25 additional patient beds. As a Lenox Hill patient myself, who delivered my son there just a little over a year ago, I appreciate the need for renovation and do support necessary hospital upgrades. And I also applaud Lenox Hill's commitment to employ union labor in such renovations. However, the scope of the proposal is not justified and would have detrimental implications. Furthermore, the project would involve prolonged periods of construction during and outside of business hours for at least 9 to 11 years, which would be highly disruptive to the community and have implications for citywide hospital infrastructure. As has already been mentioned, this hospital expansion project will not address unmet public health needs on the Upper East Side or make needed hospital services more accessible. Ultimately, upgraded patient rooms will increase the costs and decrease accessibility of receiving inpatient services at Lenox Hill Hospital for the uninsured and underinsured New Yorkers. It's unjustifiably extensive, would negatively impact city hospital infrastructure, and would unnecessarily disrupt the neighborhood for a decade. So I strongly urge you to reject Lenox Hill Hospital's current proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no questions, this panel is excused. Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Dennis McSpadden, Jeffrey LaFada, and Emmanuel D. Bias. Following, we'll hear from Cassandra Berger, Dune Aretsus, Neil Selkirk, and Ann Nam. We'll begin first with Dennis.
Good afternoon. My name is Dennis McSpadden. I am another Local 3 electrician. I worked hospital constructions for over a decade. I've been on the Cornell Wheel Medical Project, New York Presbyterian, DHK, and also the new MSK project. Lenox is a typical medical hospital with the same endeavors. I understand the worries from the residents for the congestion, et cetera, which does come with construction. I will agree. I've been doing construction 30 years. But I will tell you the relationships I did have at the construction project on the Upper East Side. Like I said, I was there for 10 years. They had pedestrian safety. They would cross people across the streets, try to limit car accidents. Actually helped out a lot. And they were there for years. A hospital does take a long time to go up. It's very intricate wiring, especially when it comes to an electrician installation. I will say a couple other things. This project is about having upgrades and better medical care. As we've seen, the rates of people getting medical care are tremendous. They're through the roof, in the millions. 4,000 babies being delivered annually by Lenox Hill. That's tremendous. Who wants them in a facility that's 100 years old, could have risk of infection, et cetera, et cetera? We spoke about the single bedrooms, much needed. We totally understand. I don't know how many times we've been into hospitals and you deal with some people that you might not want to be next to, or the screaming, and plus another exposure to more risks of infection with more than single beds. The shortened construction timeline has been addressed. The small height has been proposed. I mean, we are New York City. We're supposed to be the best in the world, and here we are with outdated infrastructure to take care of our residents. I think it's time we wake up and invest in our health care the way it looks like it's going to turn out to be. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick note to the online witnesses. We will be transitioning to online in the next 20 to 25 minutes, okay? Next, we'll hear from Jeffrey LaFada.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm the Director of Operations at Lenox Hill Hospital's Emergency Department, and I've been with Lenox Hill for the last 15 years. I've seen the organization's commitment to continuous improvement. I want to emphasize the critical need for infrastructure upgrades at Lenox Hill Hospital that directly impact the health and safety of our community. First, I want to bring us back to our emergency department's capacity. Currently, we have 34 care bays available for our patients. This number is simply insufficient to meet the growing demand we face, and I am in support of an upgrade to 48 treatment spaces as proposed. Expanding our emergency treatment capacity will allow us to continue to enhance the quality of care we provide during critical moments when every minute counts. In alignment with that goal, we need to turn our attention to the 77th Street subway. It is imperative that we upgrade the station to be ADA compliant. Many of our patients, including the elderly, as well as those with disabilities, rely on public transportation to access vital medical services. These improvements will ensure safe and easy access to the hospital and outpatient clinics and physician offices in the neighborhood, fostering a healthier and more inclusive community. The Upper East Side and New York City is having an ever-increasing geriatric population, and using available data to inform decisions, geriatric medicine and services has become a focus for our hospital, ED providers, and care teams who receive additional training annually. I want to draw your attention to the proposed ambulance bay. This initiative is crucial for improving the transition of care from the field to the emergency room. The existing setup blocks the street, causing unnecessary traffic congestion that delays critical care and time for patients. With an upgraded ambulance bay, we can facilitate swift and efficient patient transfers, ensuring that those in need receive the timely treatment that they deserve. Witnessing patients' families struggling to bring themselves into the ED, or a patient from the street with horns honking in inclement weather, is not the standard that we uphold ourselves to, and so infrastructure improvements are absolutely required. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have an Emmanuel here? Okay, you guys are excused. Next, we're going to hear from Cassandra, Dune, Neil, and Ann. The following panel will consist of Brian Verona, Rachel Storch, Lenore, and Andrea Goldwyn. We could begin first with Cassandra.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Berger. I live at 812 Park Avenue, 2 blocks away from Lenox Hill Hospital. I'm on my co-op board, and we are opposed to the current application. I've lived on the Upper East Side for the past 25 years and raised my 2 children there, and would love to try to maintain its residential neighborhood character. The proposed 10-plus years of construction, the closure of lanes on Park Avenue and Lex Avenue, the traffic and pedestrian congestion would all be hugely disruptive. We agree that modernization is necessary, but the scope of the proposed expansion is completely unnecessary. It will only add a nominal number of beds, but it will increase space for elective surgeries and labor delivery rooms. I dispute the notion that elective surgeries and baby deliveries constitute health care for patients in their most vulnerable moments. This is about profits. Northwell is in the epicenter of a landmarked residential neighborhood, and its proposed expansion is tantamount to throwing a grenade into this quiet, family-friendly neighborhood, and it will destroy its close-knit fabric. The proposed expansion is just like the supposed modernization that Robert Moses tried to force on Greenwich Village that was successfully opposed by local residents. In hindsight, Moses's proposed plans are viewed with horror, and their defeat is studied by politicians and urban planners alike for maintaining healthy neighborhoods. 10 plus years of construction is your child's entire grade school life from K through 8. If this proposal is approved, people will move to the suburbs or another state, and this special neighborhood will be lost. These hospital dollars should be spent in other boroughs that we know from COVID desperately need the medical care and union jobs.
Thank you. Dune?
My name is Dune Arbus. In acknowledging receipt of one of my several letters to you, Keith Powers, Carolyn Rufkin wrote that you were continuing to advocate for a reduction in the timeline and the height of the building. Only 2 of about a dozen extremely astute community objections to the most recent Lenox Hill Hospital renovation proposal. Just as Northwell has ignored the well-reasoned wisdom of the community, it appears to have ignored your purported advocacy, which, frankly speaking, amounts to their spitting in your face. Small, incremental victories actually constitute losses. Nonetheless, like so many others, including the tragically misnamed City Planning Commission, you seem bent on allowing Northwell, under cover of health care, in spite of zoning laws and rationality, to do whatever it wishes, thereby destroying the neighborhood you represent and the one Lenox Hill Hospital pretends to value. One can only conclude in dismay that once more, money and raw power have been victorious. Is this the catastrophe you have chosen as your legacy? Where is your spine? Where is democracy? Or do I misjudge you, and you are still sitting on the fence? If so, the moment to get off the fence is now, and to put yourself on the side of the angels, because although it's against my grain to admit it, that is unequivocally the side of the opposition, the side I'm on, where you would be very welcome. One of my main concerns is that if the hospital fails to deliver on its promises, there are no penalties and therefore no incentives to avoid making empty promises. We can only hope that, contrary to recent past experience, the members of the City Council will have the courage and independence to choose to do what is right rather than what is expedient. We know who you are. We will not forget.
Thank you, Dune. Next we hear from Neil.
My name is Neil Selkirk. I am a patient at Lenox Hill Hospital. My daughter was born there. Until I retired from teaching, I was a member of the UAW. The proud union members here should realize that they are being used by Northwell Health. Lenox Hill Hospital is going to be rebuilt anyway. Your jobs are secure. But if Lenox Hill moved, there would be double the construction jobs created under the plan that they are endorsing at the moment, that you guys, the union guys. Nobody is opposed to the renovation of Lenox Hill Hospital, but the proposition under discussion is not about the renovation of Lenox Hill Hospital. The matter under consideration today is about the planned construction of a massive, completely unnecessary, and under current zoning, illegal tower on top of the space presently occupied by Lenox Hill Hospital. This huge tower would be utterly out of place in this residential community and will, if built as planned over 10 or more years, simply wreck one of Manhattan's most vibrant and precious neighborhoods. 96.5% of local respondents and voters are opposed. The proposed monolith was designed from the outset as nothing more or less than a vast monument to the greater glory of Northwell Health and its retiring CEO, who admitted to the financial press that the building's planned huge size is essential to Northwell's capacity to appear dominant in the presence of its longer established and more famous healthcare neighbors. This tower serves no socially redeeming purpose whatsoever. The proposal is drenched in corporate narcissism and greed. The construction of this tower would in fact become an eternal monument to the corruption and failure of representative government in this city that we all claim to love. To vote in favor of this construction is literally unconscionable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ann?
My name is Ann Nam. I am urging members of the committee to vote no on the extreme, unnecessary, and unprecedented expansion of Lenox Hill Hospital. The current plan calls for a huge 436-foot or 390-foot tower, the size of a midtown office building, right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and a decade of construction. And all of this so the hospital can add just 25 more rooms. They should renovate and modernize, just not at this size and scale. Community Board 8 listened and voted it down. This is not just an issue for the Upper East Side, where there are more hospital beds by far than any neighborhood in the city. Health equity is a major issue. Northwell's billions of dollars are better spent where the need is, in hospital deserts like Lower Manhattan and other boroughs. Northwell should fix Lenox Hill Hospital and use their resources in neighborhoods where it is needed. Please stand with the community and vote no. This is a vanity project that will not only cause untold traffic, safety issues, noise, and pollution for the next 10 years, but will change the face of a thriving residential neighborhood forever. It sets a dangerous precedent for extreme upzoning in residential neighborhoods throughout the city. We trust in you to do the right thing for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no questions, this panel is excused. Thank you for your testimony. The last panel I will call consists of Brian Verona, Rachel Storch, Lenore Pasavanti, Andrea Goldwyn, and George Janes. If I did not call your name, that is the last panel I have for in-person testimony. If you want to testify, please see one of the Sergeant at Arms to submit a speaker's card. We'll begin first with Brian. Brian Verona. Okay. Rachel.
Good afternoon, Chairman Riley, Councilman Powers. My name is Rachel Storch. I am a mother of 4 children. I delivered all of them at Lenox Hill, and I have a special place in my heart for the hospital and for the doctors and nurses and all of the others who are on the front lines every day ensuring a standard of excellence for all those who walk in the front door of the hospital seeking care. For the last 15 years, I have lived at 74th and Lexington. It is where I intend to continue raising my children. And I'm here today as a member of the community to express my deep concern about the scope and scale of the project. The construction timeline and the ensuing traffic congestion, noise, and other disruption will have a significant adverse impact on quality of life in a neighborhood known for quality of life, one of the spectacular neighborhoods that make up the city's east side. Having recently concluded a campaign for city council in the district that includes the hospital, and having been well positioned to listen to those who would be affected by the hospital's plans, I would be remiss if I did not convey the profound concerns and deep distress of the residents in the neighborhoods surrounding the hospital regarding the hospital's plans. This issue is top of mind for so many, for residents, business owners, religious institutions, and numerous schools that exist in the shadow of the hospital. I'll conclude today by urging the Council and the hospital to seek out a compromised position that will support the modernization and growth of the hospital, but preserve and protect the quality of life for residents on the East Side. It is never too late to bring stakeholders to the table to achieve a consensus, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. We have another testimony from Dan Dunham. Dan, you may begin.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Dan Dunham. I am the Chair of Medicine at Lenox Hill Hospital with training in epidemiology.
Dan, can you press the button, please?
Yeah, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dan Dunham. I'm the Chair of... Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Thank you. My name is Dan Dunham, the Chairman of Medicine at Lenox Hill Hospital with training in epidemiology, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to comment on some of the things that were addressed here earlier. I think one recurrent theme is that we're only adding on 25 beds despite a considerable increase in scope in the hospital. This is really a reflection on the changes in how we provide care for patients. We know now that something we didn't know 60 years ago was that there's tremendous advantage from a single patient room. There's lower risk of infections, there's better quality of sleep, all these things improve health outcomes. In the emergency room, which we have, it's very small and outdated. By increasing the size of that, it will enhance throughput, so if you are sick, you have an urgent medical problem, which is by definition what we see in the emergency room, by quicker throughput, you should have better health outcomes. Similarly with surgery, if you have a bigger surgical suite, allows you to be more efficient and can have shortened emergency room times, which is associated with fewer infections. Now, Dr. Baker spoke earlier about the outcomes we have and how we're well regarded. I would argue that's because of the culture of the hospital and the people who work there. And if you have good healthcare workers and you have an average facility, you can still get good care. But I think what we're asking for is to have good healthcare workers with an outstanding community, which should allow us to do even better care. There's a talk earlier, it seems like there's a consensus that people are willing to acknowledge that we need to make changes, but despite that, we want to kind of control the scope a little bit. I'm not an architect, but there's not a movement by people within Northwell to try to have a big size facility. That's expensive. What we want to do is have a facility which is big enough to provide great care for patients, but as small as possible otherwise. That will help lower the cost, but allow us to provide great care for people. There is definitely a need for hospitals outside of these
Thank you, Dan. You can start wrapping it up.
Pardon me?
You can start wrapping up.
Okay. I'll do that quickly. I can say that at Northwell, we have a commitment to providing care in other areas as well, but this is part of the overall plan. We do provide care downtown. We are the biggest provider of care in Staten Island as well. So there's many points being addressed here, but if we don't build up in this hospital, if we're here 6 years from now, there's a good chance we will not continue to exist. And especially with the big Build Better Act, it's going to be very difficult for any new hospitals to be constructed. And you will see over the next couple of years,
Thanks, Dan.
fewer. Thank you. Sorry.
Next we hear from Lenore. Sorry, Lenore.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for your time. My name is Lenore Passavanti, and I have been a resident of the Upper East Side for the past 21 years. I'm a registered architect with 30 years experience, but prior to being a registered architect, I was a registered nurse at New York Presbyterian Hospital on the Columbia campus at 168th Street, where I worked in the adult surgical ICUs for over 12 years full-time. I am a member of NYSNA, which is the nursing union, and I am pro-union and pro-jobs for union workers and absolutely support jobs for construction workers. While I am not opposed to Northwell building a new hospital, I am opposed to the size and massing of the current proposal. Northwell compares this facility to other healthcare facilities with which they are to compete. These competitors are located on campuses that comprise multiple blocks in areas on the periphery of some residential blocks, but mostly commercial blocks and public infrastructure. Cornell and MSK are between First and the FDR. Columbia is between Broadway and the Henry Hudson Parkway. NYU between First and the FDR. When Northwell compared its design to taller residential towers in the area, it would be important to know, while Northwell just this morning compared its design to taller residential towers in the area, it would be important to know if those buildings' ability to build taller may have had less to do with getting multiple variances, as Northwell has, and more to do with existing regulations, their ability to purchase air rights, and other factors. As someone mentioned earlier, comparing the Carlisle to Northwell is like comparing apples to oranges. And residential buildings do not generate the traffic and other activities a full-service hospital does. The proposed 360 square foot private rooms, that was the average area of the private rooms according to the city planning issue report. That's a 12-foot by 30-foot room. That's larger than most living rooms. I do not think the axonometric drawings of option 2 are scaled accurately, where it shows the building heights going from 395 to 360. Councilman, I think you should take a closer look at that. Modernization of the hospital, yes. This proposal, no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Chair Riley and Councilmember Powers. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking on behalf of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy opposes this plan, which would radically change zoning in this neighborhood. Although the site is not a designated landmark, it contains several historic buildings designed by notable architects York and Sawyer and is surrounded by historic districts. This proposal calls for the demolition of those buildings and would drastically disrupt the relationship of the hospital and its neighbors. Everyone knows the city deserves world-class medical institutions. We appreciate that Lenox Hill needs to upgrade services, but there are experts who disagree with the hospital's insistence that this is the only size building that can meet their needs. There must be a way to do this without such negative impacts. We urge you to demand revisions that bring this proposal closer to as of right. Perhaps the number of beds, the ceiling heights, the size of mechanical spaces could be reduced. This proposal is not a minor change. The new building would be 3 times larger than what zoning allows, with massive floor plates rivaling the Freedom Tower and exceeding those of any other hospital tower in the area. In the past, the council has exercised its authority to make changes, such as the reduction in height at the blood center. This site deserves the same consideration. Finally, we have to note that there have been almost no changes to this proposal, despite 6 years of significant community opposition, proposed alternate plans, testimony from medical experts who question the need for the program, and the concerns about citywide health equity. Early on, an out-of-scale Park Avenue residential tower was suggested and quickly rescinded. Other than that, through the task force, the community engagement, numerous presentations to the community board, and this ULURP, the project remains essentially the same. So council members, we ask you to make the changes that will allow both Lenox Hill Hospital and the surrounding community to coexist and thrive. Thank you for the opportunity to express the Conservancy's views.
Thank you. And George.
I'm George Janes. I'm the planner who's been helping neighbors on this application. So last year, council held hearings on the closure of hospitals. I listened to them. You heard a lot of concern about equity and hospital deserts at that hearing. Hospital closures and hospital expansions are 2 sides of the same coin. If you're expanding hospitals in one neighborhood, you are helping to close them in another neighborhood. If you care about health equity, the last thing you want to do is expand services in the most overserved neighborhood in the city. Yet that's exactly what this application does. We are letting hospital administrators develop facilities in locations that serve their needs, not the needs of New Yorkers. We keep approving applications that increase inequity despite Speaker Adams' land use guidelines, which I've read and enjoy, that tell us that we should, quote, proactively plan to increase access to health care and essential services across our neighborhoods, particularly in neighborhoods that have suffered from historic neglect or have high populations of residents with greater support needs, unquote. It goes on to later say, and to ensure that new development should be paired with swift and effective commitments to provide resources and support that avoids worsening inequities. Improving and expanding Lenox Hill Hospital will not increase demand for hospital services, but will instead take patients from other hospitals, maybe your hospital. If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. I urge you to vote no or substantially modify this application. Thank you.
You gotta do this when you want to clap your hands, all right? Here. Thank you. Raise the roof. Thank you, Ms. Susan. There being no questions, this panel's excused. Thank you so much. If there is no one else in person who wants to testify, is there anyone else in person that wants to testify? If you want to testify, please see one of the sergeants to fill out a speaker's card. We're going to transition to online testimony. The first group I'm going to call on consists of Patricia Rasiti, Amy Attis, Susan Falls Hills, and Richard Scharf. We'll begin first with Patricia Rasiti.
You may begin.
Patricia, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin. Patricia Rasiti. Patricia Rasiti, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin. If not, we'll move on to Amy Attis. Amy Attis, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
You may begin.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to air my objections to the proposed Northwell Tower. The dramatic hospital expansion must be reevaluated in terms of New York City's hospital needs generally and the difficulties this construction and the current plan will have on the local neighborhood. The Upper East Side of Manhattan, as we've heard, is currently well saturated with excellent hospitals, and other areas of the city are less well served, perpetuating a healthcare injustice. The project as proposed is stunningly out of line with the Lenox Hill area, and its time scope will lead to increased hardship for its neighbors. Lexington Avenue is slated to be the location of the new main entrance of the larger hospital, and this 4-lane avenue is already severely stressed. The eastern lane reserved for street parking, the western lane a bus lane, and one lane is frequently clogged with double-parked commercial delivery vehicles, and traffic tries to move on the one remaining lane. Park Avenue, with its multiple lanes that are not blocked by commercial vehicles servicing retail stores, would more easily accommodate such a new hospital entrance. If this renovation is to proceed, I urge Northwell to do it with the least amount of disturbance and damage to those who live and work in the neighborhood. The construction will lead to dust, dirt, noise, and street closures for years because Northwell prefers to keep operating rather than doing the project in a fraction of time by closing and using their alternate locations during construction. This timing shows further lack of respect for the local community.
Thank you. We're now going to go to Patricia Rasiti. I think to unmute, you have to hit *6.
You may begin.
Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing our comments. Please oppose the Lenox Hill Hospital expansion, which is a plan not about providing needed or improved healthcare where it's needed, but about profit. Expanding a maternity unit, this is not about improving outcomes. The current one is already blue ribbon rated. This is just to compete with Cornell's Alexandra Cohen Tower. Expanding neurosurgery, we live blocks from HSS. What's the need here that justifies violating established zoning laws? None. This is simply because neurosurgery is one of the highest revenue generators for hospitals. And lastly, why does Lenox Hill so staunchly want to remain in the Upper East Side versus areas with a much higher need for medical care? Look to EMTALA, a federal law requiring hospitals to treat all emergency patients regardless of their ability to pay. Staying in the Upper East Side is just good business for them. Let's engage in true visionary city planning. Lenox Hill should sell its current plot, raising the money it needs to build a state-of-the-art hospital and relocate to, say, Hudson Yards, an area zoned for a hospital, greatly underserved in healthcare, and home to a burgeoning biotech and pharma corridor. This is actually not about construction, community disruption, and no one's arguing against more modern facilities or more construction jobs. It's just about whether this location needs another hospital so badly as to justify changing zoning laws. You put this plan, with all its zoning violations, in areas of the Bronx or Queens, and the community leaders would be thrilled. Many stroke victims in those areas might not survive, simply because the nearest hospital is too far away. So I encourage Northwell and city government to demonstrate vision and team up, think about hospital needs, community needs, and the city's needs. The current project lacks business judgment and civic
Thank you. Your
mindedness.
time expired.
Thank you. And I'll hear from Susan Fales Hill.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I have lived on the corner of 77th and Park for the last 28 years. I raised my daughter here. This expansion has been framed by Northwell as an effort to improve health equity and serve the community, which begs the question, which community? We just heard the Medicaid statistics from another witness. A dismal 18% of Northwell's patients overall receive Medicaid. 15% of those receiving maternal care. Compare this with 50% at many other hospitals. It's lovely that they ceased construction during the AP exams at Wagner High School near their 3rd Avenue campus. Would that they would show the same respect on 77th Street, where until very recently, their service trucks were parked on the sidewalk, creating an enormous risk for many of the pedestrians, many of them children. The ambulances are not the only sources of congestion, Dr. Baker. Their valet parking service, which was not mentioned by anyone working for the hospital, are a great cause of delays in traffic and congestions. Which of their patients does this valet parking service serve? Certainly not those taking the 6 train. Northwell's brand of humanity was on full display last Sunday morning at 10 a.m. when I saw a homeless gentleman run out of the hospital and begin to defecate on the street. A passing EMT encouraged him to go into the hospital. The gentleman explained that he'd just been turned away and proceeded to do his business on the street. I understand security concerns, but surely someone at the hospital could have escorted him to a bathroom so that he could relieve himself with dignity. As the granddaughter of a union member and a proud member of the Writers Guild of America myself, I am sympathetic to my union brothers and sisters. But their needs...
Thank you. Your time expired.
Thank you.
This panel is excused. Thank you so much for your testimony. The next panel will be calling up consists of Lionel Burke, Benjamin Marcus, Jan Terhar, and Evelyn Finster. We'll begin first with Lionel Burke.
You may begin.
Lionel, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
Yes, hello everyone. I just need 1 second for my notes. I'm sorry. I'm asking the council to put this project on hold. Firstly, Dr. Baker's answer to why they can't relocate, I found his answer to be very weak because many of our patients rely on the 6th train, he says. I'm sure there are patients using other subway lines in areas with fewer hospitals that would be delighted if Northwell relocated. Secondly, to use Dr. Baker's words, is trouble understanding why Northwell can't build its tower because the Carlisle is also tall. I believe most of us understand the difference very well. The iconic Carlisle was built in 1930. Nobody other than Northwell is in favor of building that tall. Not even anyone who has spoken in favor of the project today. The only argument heard from the individuals who spoke in favor of the proposed project was that the hospital needed to be modernized and create jobs. None have said why they would be opposed to Northwell modernizing the hospital without building a lower structure. And that there might be more union workers speaking after me who will be telling us how the hospital needs to be modernized without telling us why it needs to be modernized this tall or why they don't want to see it relocated. In fact, if it relocated, it would generate many more jobs. Northwell is saying they would have to reduce the services they can provide, but have failed to tell us that they are already expanding their offering and services by currently building new structures nearby on the Upper East Side. I strongly urge you to reject the project in its current form and ask Northwell to come up with alternatives instead and to work closely with Community Board 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we hear from Benjamin Marcus.
You may begin.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Marcus. I'm an architect and a neighbor not employed by Northwell, and I am not insane or in any Faustian bargains with people of power, so I am in opposition. In this venal, grasping proposal, Northwell really shows itself to be a luxury real estate development company masquerading as a healthcare company. And this design is a visual monstrosity and an arrogant breach of zoning and what should be obvious and simple levels of taste. Comparing this oversized, snap-together exercise in competitive banality to the handmade Art Deco splendor of the Carlisle exposes a level of a designer's snideness that cannot be confused with mere naivete. The Carlisle, by its elegant height and width ratio and its sober urbane materials, presides as a beacon of civility and decorum over the Upper East Side. Its singularity compared to its neighbors asks all the more so for protection against exactly such aggressively ugly encroachments as this. And a designer's claim that making the building shorter would force a reduction of services is entirely disingenuous. There are myriad ways of configuring related programmatic functions, including, for example, using the currently falling real estate prices to acquire and reconfigure or repurpose existing lower-rise buildings. There are infinite ways to design if there was any concern or circumspection about as for the scale of the surrounding residential neighborhood. And a note about these proceedings. I sat through the entire more than 6.5 hours of public testimony against the City Planning Commission during their hearings on this issue on May 21st. And all of the scores of criticism, neighbors and interested people who rose to express, of citizens, neighbors and interested people who rose to express their concerns, the only people, and a tiny fraction of the total it was, who could muster or feign a positive opinion about this project were directly employed by the applicant. The entire rest of the testimony by the people who would be affected by the outside of the building rather than the inside was overwhelmingly and viscerally scathing. That the Planning Commission took all that in and then proceeded to approve the application demonstrates a conspicuous
Thank you. Your
contempt
time expired.
for the democratic process.
Thank you, Benjamin. Next we hear from Jan Terhar.
You may begin.
Jan, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin. Jan, if you can hear me, please unmute. If Jan's not there, we can move on to Evelyn Finster. Evelyn, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm testifying in staunch opposition to Northwell's application to massively expand Lenox Hill Hospital. My family has lived across the street from the hospital for 45 years, and I've participated in almost every forum where Northwell pursued their plans for Lenox Hill since the initial presentation in 2019. So I've seen firsthand how Northwell purports to listen to their neighbors while actually showing utter disregard for the well-being of the community. Northwell's proposal to build an extraordinarily oversized facility in the middle of our dense residential neighborhood will severely damage the community. The negative impacts will be felt not only during the long and disruptive construction period, but permanently, as the resulting facility will rob us of light and air, clog our streets, and depress our home values. It is hard to even imagine how Northwell could stage and execute their construction plans without paralyzing the neighborhood for years, given that they had to close our block on 76th Street for entire days, twice in recent months, in order to erect a crane and replace a single MRI machine at a time. It is astonishing that Northwell seeks to double its square footage without adding meaningfully to the number of patients who will be served and without adding a single healthcare job. It is clear that the size of the facility is largely driven by their pursuit of having only single-bedded rooms. Single-bedded rooms are a luxury, not a necessity. And in order to keep the hospital to a scalable size, and I mean under 250 feet in height, with respect to Civitas under 400 is too high. They must give up their single-bedded rooms only design and determine the best mix of rooms to maximize their occupancy. In terms of coverage by insurance, in this current political environment where cuts to Medicaid have sadly progressed and Medicare is by no means safe, it is impossible to ensure that such rooms will be accessible to patients on public insurance. We're grateful to the thoughtful work of CBA and their ultimate recommendation to reject Northwell's application without important conditions.
Thank you. Your time expired.
May I finish just my sentence, please?
Yes, finish up.
Thank you. We're shocked by the City Planning Commission's approval and Manhattan Borough President Levine's recommendation to approve. Their comments could not have been written better by Northwell's own PR firm. This is not a matter of the preference of the few. The community is not grappling with the proposal. We are outraged and reasonably and vehemently opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Jan, can you please press *6 to speak? Jan, can you please press *6 to speak?
You may begin.
Jan, if you can hear me, to unmute, you have to press *6. Okay. So Jan dropped off. So we're gonna, this panel's excused. We're gonna move on to the next panel, which consists of Pierre Van Boxdale, John Oxman, Ann Goodbody, and Chloe Davis. We'll begin first with Pierre Van Boxdale.
You may begin.
Hi, my name is Pierre Van Boxdale. I stand to express my strong opposition to Northwell Lenox Hill Hospital application as it has been submitted. This is not a renovation, this is an expansion project. A modernization project is an expansion project. The proposed plan would significantly diminish the quality of life of my community and be detrimental to our neighborhood. While I believe a Lenox Hill Hospital renovation should occur, the plan needs to be modified to exist within the existing zone limits. Furthermore, all discussions on the renovation should include the neighborhood community organizations that have not been part of the planning stages. My family and healthcare professionals have resided at East 77th Street since the 60s, 1 block from the hospital. Having grown up and presently live in this community, I have witnessed Northwell's increasing presence since their acquisition of Lenox Hill Hospital. The concept of transforming Lenox Hill Hospital into a destination hospital on the Upper East Side has all the earmarks of an ambitious accessibility project, which is unnecessary given that our area is already well served by 6 existing hospitals. The Northwell Health Services required for their expansion project hospital cannot be squeezed into the current footprint. This will require the community to suffer 9 to 11 years of construction zones, which will affect quality of life. I respectfully urge you to vote against this application. Thank you for letting me, thank you.
Thank you. Next we hear from John Oxman.
You may begin.
John, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin. John Oxman. John, if you hear me, please press *6. If anyone's on the phone, if I call your name, you're going to have to press *6 to unmute. John, if you hear me, please press *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for taking the time to let me express my views. I'll be brief. There are 4 things that I wanted to say, and I think they should be of deep concern to all of you. Number 1, you've been lied to about the beds and the capacity. The reason I say that has to do with this piece of paper that comes from New York State, from the Department of Health. And this is as of last week. the bed capacity. According to them, Northwell's beds are 344 in number versus the 450 they claim today. They had 86 beds free under the 344 construct as of last week. But adding in the 106 missing beds, 192 total were unoccupied. That should cause you some concern about what these 450 going to 475 beds really means. The second has been said already, which is 10 years is just too long for a reasonable project. And the idea that they could maybe cease hospital operations, if this is indeed that important to them, finish the construction and get back to business more quickly would be advisable. The third thing is, I'd like you to reflect on your own constituents' needs when you look at the kind of complexion of this deal. In this Mamdani era that we're in, Medicaid, let's remember, does not pay for single room occupancy. They've already told you how many Medicaid patients they have, but those people would not be able to enjoy anything that they're about to come up with. By the way, most other hospitals do not have exclusively single room occupancy, and I think that will sort of give you an idea that maybe this is a project for the rich. Affordability, forget about it. Lastly, no alternative plan has even been considered, let alone presented. 475 beds isn't magic, 450 isn't magic, 400, no. They have 344 according to New York State, disputed if you will. They're not even sending the CEO for this most important project to speak to you. That speaks louder than anything. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Just want to take a second to acknowledge the youth leadership from Flushing Chinese Business Association, which is here with us in the chambers. Thank you so much for being a part of this process. Clap it up for them, please. All right, next we're gonna move on to Ann Goodbody. Ann Goodbody, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
You may begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Ann Goodbody. I'm an Upper East Side native. I'm astounded that the City Planning Commission approved Northwell's plan without change, totally ignoring the community. It was shameful. There is nothing that can justify a hospital of this grandiose scale, which is far beyond what is necessary to make it an excellent community hospital. It is also a complete waste of resources when hospitals and access to affordable health care are lacking in the rest of the city. And this plan will result in very expensive health care in order to cover its $2.5 billion capital investment and higher operating costs. Just do the math. Northwell would have you believe that this is the only possible plan to deliver quality health care, and that is far from true. They prefer to build their palace with a small increase in rooms, but all of a large scale, which they say is necessary. Absolutely not true. You can refer to the Facility Guidelines Institute, which develops guidelines for hospitals and healthcare facilities, which states then use to develop their own codes. The Lenox Hill design of single rooms is well in excess of those guidelines. We are also overbedded in the Upper East Side, while patients in the rest of the city do not have access close to home. As it is, Lenox Hill has a very high vacancy rate, which argues for reducing bed count, not increasing it. I accept the need for single occupancy rooms, but not what Northwell is designing. Therefore, the need for fewer rooms combined with a mix of smaller room sizes for a range of procedures and diagnoses leads to the conclusion that they need to renovate or build a smaller hospital. Further, building such a grand hospital may draw well-insured patients from hospitals from other parts of the city, harming their already thin margins. The requested zoning changes in a residential area are extreme, unprecedented, and totally unnecessary. And this is
Thank you. Your time expired.
In the midst of federal cutbacks. I ask you to vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Goodbody. Lastly, we'll hear from Chloe Davis.
You may begin.
Hello, and thank you. I'm Chloe Davis, a Lenox Hill neighbor. Next to me is a painting of the historic Lenox Hill Hospital entrance on 76th Street, which we had commissioned for my daughter's birth. I walked out of that beautiful building 2 months ago with my newborn, and by the way, this proposal would tear it down. I'm here to speak in opposition to this greedy expansion plan by Northwell. One, this project would illegally exceed the neighborhood zoning limits, allegedly to better serve more patients. But Northwell is already building all over the Upper East Side and the city to expand its services. That should tell you that this is simply the wrong place for this humongous project. 2, the size and scale is largely to accommodate uninterrupted services, except for the emergency room. That should tell you this isn't about altruism, it's about profits. 3, there's already a much higher concentration of hospital beds on the Upper East Side than in other neighborhoods in New York City. And there are so many other neighborhoods where Northwell could build that have both the need and the real estate. That should tell you this isn't about pragmatism, it's about prestige and Park Avenue. Lenox Hill should invest in and modernize this site, but it should do so in a realistic way. This is a community hospital in a residential area with strict zoning laws that are there to protect the neighbors that call these blocks home. This is not a place to build a gargantuan flagship hospital that could certainly be built elsewhere. Northwell should protect and nurture what it has in Lenox Hill, not aspire to turn it into something that it isn't through an absurd proposal and at great costs to the residents here. This is corporate greed, it's not sensible, and I urge the council to vote no.
Thank you. There being no panels, this panel is excused. The next panel we're going to call up consists of Michelle Jeffrey, Rhea Sinha, Elaine Levy, and Felix Cohen. We'll begin first with Michelle Jeffrey.
You may begin.
If you're on the phone, please press star and 6 to unmute. If you're on the phone, press star 6 to unmute. Michelle Jeffrey? All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I am not a Lenox Hill employee. I grew up and live on the Upper East Side, including Park Avenue and 74th Street, which allows me to identify the Park Avenue syndrome, a very entitled population fearing for their real estate. It is a self-involved group. The greater good must come first. And by the way, some of these changes will improve your real estate value. These people realize changes have to be made. They don't want the inconvenience, but you cannot have it both ways. These changes will improve everything about what goes on in the neighborhood. Patient care is so critical. I don't have to enumerate the benefits. Dr. Baker did that. If you've ever been a patient or a visitor, you know these changes impact everyone for the better. Hospitals do this because they have to in order to help the community. They do not do it on a lark. This is too hard. It's a lot of work. And if we have learned anything from the COVID experience, it is that we need this hospital, not just to upgrade, but remain open during the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we hear from Rhea Sinha. Rhea?
You may begin.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to testify. Not only am I a proud employee of Lenox Hill and Northwell, but I'm also a very happy resident of the Lenox Hill neighborhood. My husband and I live at 78th and 2nd, a mere 4 blocks from Lenox Hill Hospital. Our young children go to PS 158 down the street, and we've lived on the Upper East Side for over 10 years. My husband and I have both devoted our livelihoods to patient care and have also built our life in this community. So this issue is near and dear to my heart personally and professionally. There are many healthcare destinations on the Upper East Side. I've interacted with nearly all of them as a patient, a caregiver, or an employee, but Lenox Hill is truly the hospital for our community, and we deserve a more modern setting. Our hospital sees patients from all walks of life, many of whom cannot get access to care at other hospitals in our neighborhood. Moreover, you can see the amount of residential development across the Upper East Side. Just an avenue away, we have buildings coming up higher than the hospital is even planning. In my own 3-block radius, there are 3 huge residential luxury high-rises in development. Where will those residents seek care? We as a community are modernizing and growing, and we deserve a hospital to match this. I have the privilege of working with cancer patients of Lenox Hill Hospital every day, and I believe strongly that the aging infrastructure of our home hospital needs to be desperately addressed in order to provide our patients with the advanced treatments they need. It's true that healthcare is moving to an outpatient setting, but with that, when a patient does need to be admitted, they are typically having many more complex health issues, and we need to be able to provide the advancements in care that inpatients today require. Without a new hospital for our patients, we're doing a disservice to them, their families, and the community we love. I understand the difficulties that come with the construction and the development. I know that it'll be myself and my children stuck in the Lexington Avenue traffic, and I can truly appreciate the work that will need to be done to make these improvements. It's never an easy process, but it's a necessary evil to bring the right services to our community. We all felt the same way about the 2nd Avenue subway. It felt never-ending and burdensome, but at the end of the day, it provided critical transportation to our neighborhoods. This
Thank
is
you.
the
Your
same.
time expired.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have from Elaine Levy.
You may begin.
Elaine Levy. Elaine Levy, if you hear me, please unmute and you may begin. Okay, we'll move next to Phyllis Cohen. Phyllis Cohen, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
You may begin.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just got the button. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm here to express my strong support for the Lenox Hill Hospital redevelopment project and zoning approvals as an Upper East Side resident first, a former patient, and now an employee. This project is about right-sizing to required code and safety regulations, which means bigger. There is no option. The codes require certain sizes, certain tall, heights, and the use of private rooms. This project is about aligning Lenox Hill's physical infrastructure with its already world-class care and ensuring that the community served and the patients who seek our care have access to safe and responsive hospital environments, in an environment that is being planned for a sicker population requiring more complex services. The mistruths and the lack of charitable assumption that I've heard in this meeting by my local community members is so disheartening. It carries this undertone of not in my backyard, prioritizing property values or inconvenience over access to safe healthcare for all. The hospital is very sensitive to disruption and has promised to work with the adjacent residents and community leaders to mitigate risk. We have to do this as well. We are staying open. We are going to be caring for patients day and night, and so we must be sensitive to disruption. We will remain fully functional, including our ED for the individual who spoke about concerns passionately about her brother. We will be here for that care. There will be not be any disruption to caring for our patients. Another fact.
Thank you. Your time expired.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Levy. Elaine Levy, if you are there, please unmute and you may begin. If you're on the phone, please press *6.
You may begin.
Okay, we don't have Miss Elaine Levy. We're moving on to the last panel, which consists of Elaine Toback, Barbara Zinn Moore, and Kevin Brown. If I did not call your name and you want to testify and you're online, please use the raise hand function so we can make sure that your testimony is heard. We will first begin. Who's this? Sorry.
My apologies. It's Eileen Toback. I was next on the list.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Toback.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Eileen Toback, and I'm the Executive Director of the New York Professional Nurses Union, representing the more than 1,000 nurses at Lenox Hill Hospital. Our union strongly supports this redevelopment plan. I'm also a neighbor living 9 blocks away. Every day, these nurses care for patients from over 200 zip codes, people from every borough, every walk of life, insured or not, and they do it with excellence, compassion, and zero shortcuts. The building they work in does not meet the world-class standard of care that they deliver. The hospital is aging, and it cannot accommodate today's needs, let alone tomorrow's, without taking a toll on the people who hold it together. Nurses, doctors, techs, transporters, and others, all of them carry that burden so that patients don't feel it or have any adverse effects from it. But that strain compounds shift after shift and year after year. I truly understand concerns about construction disruption. I live in a building where I've lost more than 70% of my light from towers going up around me. I've endured nearly 5 years of nonstop construction with more on the way, including a 500-foot luxury tower being built above my head and another 489-foot luxury building across the street. There were no public hearings for my 3rd Avenue neighborhood, no concessions from builders. The only difference I can see is the well-orchestrated campaign against Lenox Hill's redevelopment, which has received extraordinary attention and accommodation from lawmakers, is that the donor class opposing it live on Park Avenue and not 3rd. Some may claim expertise simply by proximity, but living next to the Central Park Zoo doesn't make you a zoologist, and living near a hospital doesn't make you an expert in patient care, safety, throughput, or the 1,000 other decisions that define hospital operations. The reality is the current building impacts those decisions every day, creating challenges that only this redevelopment can solve. If you really want to know what a hospital needs and what is best for patients, always ask nurses. Please support this application, not just for the building, but for the people who fill it with courage and care.
Thank you. Your time
We need a hospital
expired.
that lives up to the city that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Barbara Zinmore.
You may begin.
Hi, my name is Barbara Zinmore, and I'm honored to serve as chair of the Auxiliary of Lenox Hill Hospital, and I'm not an employee. But more than that, I am here tonight as a member of this community, as a New Yorker who, like so many of you, depends on Lenox Hill, not just as a hospital, but as a lifeline. For me, this is personal. My grandson was born at Lenox Hill, and that day will forever stay in my memory. When families welcome new life, when emergencies strike, or when our loved ones need world-class medical care, Lenox Hill is there. But here's the truth. While the doctors and nurses at Lenox Hill are among the best in the world, the hospital itself, the infrastructure, the emergency department, the ambulance access doesn't reflect that excellence. This proposal is not about expansion for expansion's sake. It's about ensuring that Lenox Hill can continue to serve us at the level we deserve, with a new state-of-the-art emergency department to provide privacy and efficiency, a modern dedicated ambulance entrance, and improved subway entrance. I understand change can be difficult. However, what's even more challenging is needing urgent medical care in a facility that no longer meets the requirements of this growing city. We should not have to choose between world-class doctors and a world-class hospital. We deserve both. Lenox Hill has been a pillar of this community for generations. This plan ensures it will continue to be one for generations to come. I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Kevin Brown.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Kevin Brown. I am a registered nurse with over 38 years of in-hospital-based experience and the Chief Nursing Officer of Lenox Hill Hospital, representing more than 1,000 registered nurses who deliver nursing services across Lenox Hill. I am thankful for the opportunity to contribute the nursing voice to the development of a modernized hospital, understanding that every New Yorker will eventually benefit from the care of a hospital-based registered nurse in their lifetime. A new hospital will enhance the Lenox Hill nurses' ability to provide the highest quality nursing care by providing us with a state-of-the-art practice environment. For nurses, a new hospital means better workspaces, advanced technology, and improved resources, allowing us to deliver even safer, more effective, patient-centric care, which ultimately benefits everyone in this room, on this call, and the entire community. A new hospital is a necessary and monumental step forward, not just for the infrastructure of healthcare, but for the well-being of every patient, family, nurse, and healthcare professional who enters its walls. I urge you to vote yes, thanking you all in advance for your support in making this vision a reality. Enjoy this day.
Okay, this panel is excused. The next panel I'm going to call consists of Chad Perkey and Lonnie Levy. We begin first with Chad Perkey. Chad Perkey, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
You may begin.
Chad Perkey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Association for a Better New York, or ABNY, I'm speaking today to express our strong support for the proposed rezoning of the Lenox Hill Hospital site. The hospital, which is called Lenox Hill Home for over 160 years, has requested rezoning actions to facilitate a modernization of its facilities that will allow it to meet current and future standards of care for members of this community, the borough, and the city at large. Over the past 6 years, as the hospital has consulted with community members and stakeholders, it has demonstrated a commitment to balancing its needs with those of the community. As a result, the hospital has revised its plans to better address concerns of neighbors while also maintaining its numerous responsibilities to maintain care, improve its standard of care, and improve future operations, which will allow it to be both a better neighbor and a healthcare provider. We commend the hospital for maintaining dialogue with community members throughout this multi-year planning process and ultimately putting forth a proposal before you today, with its reduced building height and streamlined construction timeline. We strongly urge you to support this vital project, opting to realize its outside benefits to the city's healthcare system, supporting the future viability of a local institution that has loyally served its neighborhood for over 16 decades, and allow the hospital to improve its operations in order to be both a better neighbor and healthcare provider for the city. Thank you for hearing and considering our support.
Thank you. And Lonnie Levy.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Lonnie Levy. I'm a practicing emergency physician and chief medical officer of Lenox Hill Hospital. I'm here before you today to advocate for a project of vital importance to our community, the redevelopment of Lenox Hill Hospital. This isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about ensuring our ability to deliver the highest quality care to our patients for generations to come. This redevelopment will modernize our aging infrastructure, expand crucial services, and enhance our capacity to meet the evolving healthcare needs of our community. On a personal note, as a father of premature twins who spent 6 weeks in our neonatal ICU, I've witnessed firsthand the critical role our hospital plays in the lives of families like mine. This experience has deepened my commitment to ensuring Lenox Hill remains a beacon of hope and healing. I urge you to approve this plan and join us in building a healthier future for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stand at ease for 30 seconds. If you are online and would like to testify, please use the raise hand function. If you are in the chambers, please see one of the sergeant at arms to testify. I will stand at ease for the next 30 seconds. There being no other members of the public who wish to testify regarding LUs 339, 340, and 341 relating to the Lenox Hill Hospital proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over. That concludes today's business. I would like to thank the members of the public, my colleagues, subcommittee council, land use, and other council staff, and the sergeant at arms for participating in today's meeting. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.